In a universe drowned in grief and illuminated by electric light, Arwin crafts a story born from the ashes of heartbreak. Neon Nights, Volume 1 follows a man shattered by the death of his mother, abandoned by the gods he once prayed to. Consumed by sorrow, he steps into the underworld of divine conspiracies, ancient demons, and cosmic vengeance. Arwin writes not just a story, but an emotional journey, a descent into madness, faith, and the unrelenting hunger for answers. Each chapter is carved with the weight of loss, each scene ignited by fury and love. This is a world where grief becomes a weapon, where mortals challenge gods, and where one man's broken heart becomes the spark that sets the heavens on fire. This is Neon Nights, Arwin's story, a universe born from pain and destined for legend.
Carry out the revenge on the gods, the ones that took it all away.
Neon Nights, I'm the God Slayer. Arwin's name echo like a neon prayer. When the lights go out, I'll still be there. Bad juju, you don't wanna play. Step into the neon, I'll take your soul away.
Devoid of all that makes one whole, crimson sky.
Welcome to Neon Nights by Arwin, a universe where grief becomes power, where rage becomes destiny, and where one man's shattered heart ignites a war against gods themselves. This is the complete Neon Nights audiobook. Every emotion, every battle, every neon-soaked heartbeat of this world, brought to life in full cinematic audio. Prepare yourself for a journey born from loss, a story forged in darkness and sharpened by fire. You will walk beside a man who has lost everything, who rises from grief, like neon light piercing a storm. You will witness gods fall, demons shatter, and destinies rewrite themselves. In the glow of electric night, this is not just a story. This is an experience. A world built with emotion, fury, and soul. A world crafted by Arwin, and now offered to you. So take a deep breath. Sit back or stand tall. Turn up the volume. Let the neon wash over you. Because from this moment on, you are no longer just a listener. You are stepping into the legend, into the darkness, into the fire, into the world of Neon Nights. Welcome to Neon Nights by Arwin. Let the story begin. Preface. In the stillness before the world stirs, grief lingers like a shadow silent, unyielding, ever-present. Neon Nights. Volume 1 was forged in that darkness, born from the searing pain of losing my mother. Her absence became a wound no prayer could heal, a silence the gods refused to break. What remained was fire rage without mercy, sorrow without end. This book is my reckoning. The first strike in a war waged against the divine, a cry of vengeance hurled into the void. Step into a world where neon lights flicker against the night, casting sharp reflections on a road paved with broken faith and sharpened resolve. Walk with me into the abyss, let's see if gods can bleed, because mercy died with her. Dedication. I dedicate this book to all who have lost someone they loved, and still grieve in silence and sorrow that knows no end. To those trapped in the stillness of time, unable to move forward, caught in the cruel fate we bear as mortals, forever torn from those we hold dear. I feel your pain. You are not alone. Let me take this vengeance not just for myself, but for all of you. I will carry your sorrow, your rage, your regrets, and the memories of those you've lost. I will make the divine answer for the cruelty they've cast upon mortals. Every god who played a hand in this twisted design, who dictated the terms of life and death with indifference, will face reckoning. If they cannot be reasoned with, they will be silenced. And at this point, no reasoning is enough to extinguish the fire burning inside me. For too long, mankind has bowed to gods. Now, the gods will bow, but they won't be able to look up at the heavens when they do, because you can't rise after you bow when your spine's been severed, can you? Stay bowed. Stay dead. I dedicate this book to my mother, whose absence left a void that could never be filled. This story is for you and for everyone who has lost someone they loved. May the gods hear us now. The year is 2025. I wake up drenched in sweat. My shirt clings to me. A cold breeze brushes the back of my neck. The window beside my bed is slightly ajar. I drag myself up, pull the curtain aside. Outside, the world is still dark, but neon streetlights hum and flicker below, like ghosts in the mist. 4 a.m. My smartphone screen stares back at me with its cruel truth. What the hell am I doing with my life? How did everything fall apart like this? Shame coils around my ribs. Bitterness simmers, thick and slow. I feel like a hollowed-out version of who I used to be, angry, ashamed, drowning in 1,000 unspoken regrets. I've lost the will to live. Every day is just survival. Suicidal thoughts aren't visitors anymore. They're roommates. Constant, whispering, heavy. And yet, at this hour, in this silence, all I can think about is my mom. It's been 2.5 years since she passed. But her memory? Still as sharp as a blade pressed to my skin. I see her face the moment I close my eyes. I hear her voice in the quiet. I remember her sacrifices, every single one. She was my light, my anchor. The reason I woke up in the morning, the reason I smiled. Everything I ever loved about life. It was her. Life used to be full of color, full of spice. We'd talk every day, her voice still echoes in my head. She used to tiptoe into my room at night just to tuck me in, switch off the lights, whisper goodnight. God, she was the sweetest soul. What did I do to deserve her, and what did I do to lose her? Which God did I offend so badly that he ripped her away from me at 70? I relied on her for everything, maybe too much. I gave up dreams of leaving the country just to be near her, just to soak up more time. She inspired me in ways I can't explain. She was the first face I saw every morning and the last before I went to bed. And then she was gone. A stroke. Complications. I'll spare the details. Even sharing this much makes me feel exposed. But she's gone, and no amount of words will bring her back. Now, I throw money at hobbies to dull the pain. Video games, photography, bird watching, distractions, pills, caffeine, anything to silence the thoughts screaming in my skull. I have no savings, no plan, no future, because honestly, what future is there without her? Where were the gods when I begged them for a miracle? Where was mercy? Were the prayers not enough? The offerings? The devotion? Was our faith not good enough for salvation? I'm angry, so fucking angry. And I want revenge. I want a target. Someone, something to blame. If there's a God who let this happen, I'll find it. And I'll kill it. I'll tear it from its throne and make it feel every second of pain I've endured. Every heartbreak. Every unanswered cry. I don't care if it sounds crazy. I don't care if it makes me a lunatic. I refuse to accept this. I won't submit to the rules of life and death like some obedient pawn. I'm just a man, a mortal, but my rage, my grief, that's something divine. I will claw my way through heaven or hell, whatever it takes, until I set things right, until I see her again. But where do I even begin? How do you find something that's only ever been an idea? A statue in a temple? A name in a book? No one's ever seen a god. Just paintings and stories. Just dreams passed down from the mouths of the desperate. How the fuck was I supposed to find one? I know how it sounds, a broken man blaming the divine for things he can't face in reality. But can you blame me? She was everything. And she's gone. And I'm still here. The truth? If reuniting with her meant dying, I'd do it. Or at least, I keep telling myself that over and over. But I can't do it. Not yet. Not tonight. What a coward. All bark, no bite. The sun begins to rise. It's Saturday. Another wasted night of anger and empty threats. My body betrays me with a yawn. Just another fucking day. I shuffle to the kitchen and start the shiny espresso machine. It was a heat exchange single boiler machine that was made in Milan, Italy. The morning silence is brutal, deafening. When she was here, I'd wake up to the TV playing the news, her voice, the clink of her coffee cup. Now, nothing. Just a house without a soul. The hiss of the espresso machine fills the silence right after the initial priming. I watch the steam swirl upward like cigarette smoke in a noir film. My fingers tremble as I pour the latte into my chipped white ceramic mug. Her mug, the one with the two-tailed siren symbol she used to love. I never threw it out. I sip slowly. The bitterness hits first, then the warmth, and for a fleeting second, I feel like I'm not entirely broken. But the second passes, and the ache returns. The quiet is unbearable. I sit at the kitchen table, staring at the floor tiles, like they might offer some kind of divine sign, A crack runs through one of them, a long jagged scar, like a lightning bolt frozen in place. I swear it wasn't there before. Did it show up after she died? Or was it always there, unnoticed? Suddenly, it hits me. I need to move, to get out. 4 walls are closing in. I throw on a hoodie, grab my camera, and head out. The streets are empty. Cold air nips at my face as I walk without purpose, just moving. My shoes echo against the pavement, the only sound in a sleeping city. I pass a small shrine on the corner of a back street. It's been there forever, one of those roadside altars people light incense at without even knowing why. A tiny statue of some god with 4 arms and a peaceful smile. Offerings of stale fruit and melted candles gather at its base. I stop, stare. Is it you? I mutter. No answer, of course. Just stone and silence. I raise my middle finger at the statue and keep walking. 2 hours later, I find myself at the top of the old flyover bridge, camera hanging from my neck, lens cold against my chest. From here, the city looks like something out of a dream. Neon signs flickering, power lines tangled like spider webs, and the early morning fog swallowing the skyline. I take a photo. Click. Another click, and that's when I see him. A man standing on the edge of the bridge, arms wide open like he's about to fly. I freeze. He doesn't move, just stands there, staring into the fog. I step closer, cautiously. You good, man? I ask. He doesn't look back, doesn't flinch, but he speaks. Have you ever touched a god, he says. His voice is low, like gravel and rust. What? I reply, pulse starting to race. He turns. His eyes are sunken, but sharp, like they've seen things no human should. There's a mark on his neck, a strange symbol, almost branded. They exist, he says, but they're not what you think. I take a step back. You can't just say shit like that and walk away. He smiles, not kindly. You want to find one, don't you? You want answers. Or revenge. Doesn't matter which. I don't respond. I don't need to. The look on my face says everything. He nods. Then follow the cracks. What cracks? He points down at the pavement. The same kind of crack I saw on the kitchen floor. Jagged. Thin. Like something is splitting the world open. They're not random, he says. They're trails. Wounds in the fabric. I blink. He's gone. Vanished like a ghost in the mist. I stare at the crack on the bridge, heart pounding. Was it real? Was any of it? I kneel down and run my fingers along the pavement. Warm. A whisper so faint I almost miss it. She's waiting. My head jerks up. The wind is still. The city is quiet. But something has changed. For the first time in years, I feel in a purpose. The crack in the veil pulsed with a rhythm that wasn't of this world. I felt it in my chest like a second heartbeat, one that didn't belong to me. I needed time, space to breathe, think, prepare. So I went home. I moved quickly, every step purposeful. In my room, the scent of dust and comfort lingered, the kind of scent only a home left behind by a mother could hold. I unzipped my old backpack and began packing without overthinking. A couple sets of clothes, a torchlight, my prescription meds, painkillers, sleeping pills, a utility knife, some instant food, and just enough cash to get by. I threw in a few small necessities, bandages, lighter, notebook, then paused. I opened my wallet. The photo was there, the one of Mom and me from years ago, smiling like we didn't know what grief even meant. I held it, my hands shaking slightly. Wait for me, I whispered. I'm doing whatever it takes. Just hang in there. I pressed the photo to my forehead for a moment, then slid it back into its place. Outside, I checked on the fish tank. The koi shimmered like little spirits beneath the water. I'd asked the neighbors to look after them, left enough food to last. And then there was my dog, my brother in fur, always by my side. He wagged his tail like he knew I was leaving for good. I knelt beside him, burying my face in his neck. I wish I could take you, I said, but it's not safe where I'm going. I arranged for my distant cousin to care for him. Weekly visits, fresh water, regular meals. It felt cruel, leaving him, but maybe he was the last piece of innocence I couldn't take with me. Once everything was in order, I stood in the center of my room, the sanctuary where laughter once echoed, where her footsteps used to pause outside my door just to make sure I was okay. The photos on the wall watched me as I watched them back, each frame a memory, a life, a version of me I was about to abandon. And then I turned my back on it all. With my backpack slung over one shoulder, I stepped into the unknown, toward the fracture in reality, toward the impossible, toward her. It was already night when I stepped out. The streets behind me faded into silence, swallowed by shadows and memory. I walked toward the crack in the veil, a shimmering fracture in space, pulsing like a living wound. Every step closer made my heart pound harder. My breath grew shallow. The air around it felt heavy, electric. I reached out with trembling fingers. The moment my skin grazed the edge, the world collapsed. A surge of energy coursed through me, hot, erratic, violent. My body seized up, and my vision blurred. Rage swelled in my chest, dragging every ounce of pain and grief with it. My thoughts scattered, my senses spiraled, and then nothing. A snap, like lightning in reverse. I was somewhere else. I hit the ground hard, knees buckling under me. The sky above was a shade I couldn't name, not night, not day, something in between. The air smelled wrong. I doubled over and vomited. Acid burned my throat as nausea crashed over me like a wave. My head spun. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Everything in this place was distorted, like reality had been stretched and bent in ways it wasn't meant to. Stumbling forward, I found a massive, ancient tree. Its roots broke through the earth like the fingers of something long dead but unwilling to let go. I collapsed beneath it. My back against the trunk, I let the spinning world slow down. Just for a moment. Sleep clawed at the edges of my mind. I didn't fight it. Not here. Not now. I woke with a jolt. 6 hours had passed. I had been out cold beneath the ancient tree, deeper asleep than I'd felt in years. Oddly, I wasn't hungry. My body felt steady, quiet, as if something in this place was keeping me alive, or feeding off me. I stood up, brushed off the dirt, and took in the world around me. It wasn't Earth. Not really. The colors were faded, dreamlike. The air shimmered faintly, thick with a hum I couldn't place. Time felt fractured. Gravity felt inconsistent. Another dimension, that's the only way I could describe it. I needed answers. And fast. That man, the one who told me about the veil, he knew something. About this place, about the gods, about the afterlife. He might be my only lead. I wandered for what felt like hours, maybe days. Everything looked ancient, stone roads cracked by time, buildings swallowed by overgrowth, relics of a forgotten civilization that still pulsed faintly with life. And then I found them. People. Civilization. They looked almost human. Maybe they were. It didn't matter. It was proof I wasn't alone here. I approached, described the man as best I could. The look in their eyes told me enough. They had no idea who I was talking about. Or maybe I didn't have enough to go on. I kept walking, wandering. Time blurred. I lost track of how many days had passed. My legs ached, my mind frayed. Eventually, I gave up searching and sat on a stone wall, breath heavy, heart heavier. That's when he appeared. Like smoke drifting out of nowhere, he stood before me, arms crossed, that same unreadable expression on his face. He looked down at me and smirked. "Didn't think you'd be foolish enough to come this far," he said. I met his eyes, unblinking. "I'm foolish enough to kill a god," I said. "Coming here was child's play." He chuckled, the first real emotion I'd seen from him. "Come with me," he said, "if you're serious about seeing this through." I stood without hesitation. He was the key to everything. I followed him deep into the outskirts of the settlement, through winding forest paths and past collapsed ruins. Eventually, we arrived at a simple, wooden structure tucked beneath a grove of white blossom trees. A dojo, the kind you only saw in old martial arts films. The man slid the door open, motioned for me to enter. I stepped inside. It was humble, worn by time, but it felt sacred. He turned to me. "What's your name?" he asked. "Arwin," I replied. I returned the question. "And you?" He gave a slight grin, as if he'd been waiting for that. "Call me Sensei." I snorted. "What is this, karate kid?" He didn't laugh, but something told me he'd wipe the floor with me if I tried anything funny. I may not have powers. I may not be able to move mountains with my mind or summon storms with a flick of my wrist like some goddamn chosen one. But what I do have is rage. What I have is grief so deep, it scorched my soul. Pain. Anger. Longing. These are my weapons. These are what will drive me forward. I don't care if it kills me. I'll forge my own path. I'll burn my way through heaven if I have to. For now, I needed Sensei. This bastard, he was my unfortunate ticket into the madness. I played along, the whole Sensei-student thing. All right, I said, folding my arms. What's your real name? He tilted his head slightly amused. John, he said simply. Just John? Sensei John to you, he said with a smirk. But if you must know, John Castile. That last name echoed somewhere deep in my mind, like a shadow I couldn't quite chase. Castile. I didn't know why, but it stirred something. A half-memory. A name buried in myth, maybe. I told him everything about my mother. About the veil, the grief, the rage, the hopeless spiral that led me here. He listened quietly, eyes heavy with some unspoken weight. It wasn't just pity in his gaze. It was familiarity. He'd felt this pain before. I could see it in the way his jaw clenched, the silence that lingered a second too long. I wanted to ask. I really did. But something told me not to pry. Not yet. Instead, I changed the subject. This place, this world, what is it? He stepped toward the center of the dojo, arms behind his back. This, he said, is the space between. A realm neither of gods nor of men. I blinked. You mean the afterlife? He shook his head. Not quite. We call it Dimension 3. It's a hidden layer of existence, a plane untouched by divine law. It lives, breathes, and survives on one thing, the will of its inhabitants. The will? He turned to face me. Your hatred, your anguish, your desire to defy fate, that's what brought you here. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Only those who surpass the limits of mortal resignation can tear through the veil, he continued. That rift you found wasn't an accident. It was the echo of your soul screaming loud enough to be heard by the universe itself. My throat tightened. You were there at the bridge when I saw it. I didn't cause it, he said. I just guided you, like a lighthouse to a drowning man. I clenched my fists. You asked me once, I said, if I'd ever touched a god. His gaze sharpened. I don't care about power, enlightenment, or whatever the hell this place is supposed to teach me, I said, stepping toward him. I'm here to kill the one responsible for tearing my life apart. I'm here to burn the sky and drag that god down by the throat. I dropped to my knees. Not in surrender. In desperation. Tell me how. Please, Sensei. Sensei stood in silence for a while, eyes fixed on something far beyond the walls of the dojo. I could tell this wasn't easy for him. In time, he said at last, his voice softer than I expected. I'll tell you everything. But before we go further, there's something you need to understand. He turned his gaze piercing straight through me. This path you're walking, vengeance, it doesn't just burn your enemies. It burns you. It's a long, treacherous road, lonely, bitter, and once you start down it, there's no turning back. I didn't speak. I just nodded. I knew that pain already. Sensei took a breath. It's time you knew who I really am. He looked down at his hands calloused, scarred, but steady. I am, or rather was, an archangel of God, one of his chosen, the angel of the Lord. The air shifted. The room felt heavier. Even the silence seemed to hold its breath. I followed his every command, he continued, watched over heaven, carried out his will, kept the celestial balance, a perfect soldier, a good son. He paused, his jaw tightening. But over time, I grew envious, of humans. Of you. Your chaos, your emotion, your love. You could feel in ways we never could. I wanted that. I wanted to live like you do. Love like you do. I stared at him, stunned. And God, he granted my request. His eyes softened, distant with memory. I was reborn, a child to kind, gentle parents. They loved me more than I ever thought possible. They raised me with warmth, with laughter. I had a home, a real one. His voice trembled for the first time. But one day, that home was taken from me. He clenched his fists. They were caught in a robbery, just trying to stop the chaos, trying to help. And they were gunned down in cold blood, right in front of me. Just like that. Gone. The dojo fell into silence again. Except now, it felt sacred, like the walls themselves were mourning. I pleaded to God for answers, he said, voice low and bitter. I begged him to undo it, to bring them back, but all I got was silence. He looked back up at me. That was the day I stopped being his angel. John stood before the throne of heaven, its blinding light, once a comfort, now a blight on his soul. Was it too much to ask, he began, voice shaking, for a life where death didn't lurk behind every tender moment? His wings trembled with rage. I gave everything for you. I led your armies. I upheld your word like law. I watched over creation while you lounged on your throne. And what did I get in return? His voice cracked. To be born a mortal. To feel love, only to have it ripped away like some cruel joke. God was silent. John's eyes burned now, wide and unblinking. I died, an old man, alone. And when I returned here, back in my angelic form, I brought something with me: memory, emotion, grief, and with it, a question that won't leave me. He stepped forward. What is life, Father? Why is it so short? Why do you get to live forever, while we, your creations, die in agony, clinging to the people we love until they're stolen from us? No answer. Is it your ego? John asked, voice rising. Do the tears of the dying fuel your grace? Do our prayers and suffering scratch some divine itch of yours? I said, God's voice thundered, I owe you no explanation. The heavens shook with his words. I create, I destroy. That is my right. Life is mine to give and take. My balance must be maintained, and sacrifices are the fuel that keeps my power intact. Mortals die. That is the order of things. John stared at him, disgusted. And what about you? He spat. Why don't you sacrifice your kind? Why are the gods above consequence? You dare question me? God boomed. My kind are eternal. You are beneath us. You forget your place. No, John whispered. I've remembered it. I remember what it's like to feel, to bleed, to love. He looked up, tears brimming in his eyes. And you know what I've learned? You're afraid. Afraid of losing your power. Of mortals realizing they don't need gods anymore. That maybe your entire kingdom is built on a lie. God sneered. Ungrateful vermin. You mortals only pray when you're desperate. You whine about your suffering, yet you demand more at every turn. There is no satisfying you. You used to worship us. Now you curse our names. You've forgotten your place in the grand design. John stepped closer. The throne room trembled. A hush fell over the host of heaven as John Castiel, angel of the Lord, stood defiant before the Creator. Then maybe it's time we redesign it, John said. Those words were the last thing he ever said as an angel. God's voice echoed like a collapsing star. You've chosen defiance over faith, emotion over duty, mortal fragility over divine order, so be it. Without a gesture, without even moving, the Almighty passed sentence. John screamed not from pain, but from loss. His wings, once vast and silver, caught fire. His grace, that divine light within him, was torn from his chest like it was never his to begin with. He fell, spiraling down through dimensions, flung from heaven like a fallen comet, burning across realms unseen by mortal eyes, had plummeted into darkness. When he awoke, he was no longer in heaven nor on earth. He was somewhere in between. A twilight world where reality twisted like smoke, suspended between the world of gods and mortals. This was the veil, a place hidden from the influence of any pantheon. No prayers were heard here. No divine hands reached in, just silence and echoes. For centuries, John wandered this place alone, bitter and broken. But in that solitude, he found something else: clarity. The pain he once bore became fuel for something greater. He watched mortals stumble into the veil now and then, by accident, trauma, or sheer force of will. Most were consumed, lost. But one day, he felt a familiar spark, a soul ablaze with purpose. Arwin, when John first saw me by the bridge, he recognized the same fire he once carried. The heartbreak, the rage, the refusal to accept fate. He stepped out of the shadows, not as an angel, not as a man, but as something new. A guide? A broken sword still sharp enough to cut the divine. Now, standing in the dojo, John looked at me, not as a student, but as the storm he had once prayed for. Everything I've told you, John said, everything I am was none of it matters unless you're ready to become more than human. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Your journey starts here. If you truly want to kill a god, You need to learn how to fight like one. Hearing his life story brought tears to my eyes. I clenched my fist so hard I could feel the veins swell beneath my skin, as if somehow, through sheer hatred, I could punch through the cosmos and lay my hands on that so-called God. But of course, not yet. That day would come. For now, I just stared at John. No wings, no golden glow, just a man with tired eyes and a pain so deep it had reshaped him. "Thanks," I said, voice cracking, "for being straight with me, for not sugarcoating anything." John gave a half smile, the kind that carries more weight than words. "We don't have time for lies here," he said. "This place, this veil, it's made of truth. Brutal, unfiltered truth. You either face it or you fade away." I paused, thinking about something that had been bugging me since I arrived. "I haven't eaten in days," I said, "but I'm not starving. Why?" John's eyes flicked toward the horizon, where the sky seemed to shimmer like heat waves on asphalt. "Because hunger here isn't real, not like it is back in your world. In the veil, your body listens to your mind. If you think you need food, your body craves it, but it doesn't need it. Pain, thirst, sleep, all of them are reflections of memory, not survival. This place, it's powered by thought, emotion, will." I blinked slowly, trying to take that in. "So, we're ghosts?" "No," John said. "You're still human, just in a place where the rules bend. But the one rule that doesn't change? Purpose. Without it, you'll rot here. With it, you'll reshape this place to your will." I let those words linger. My purpose had been simple up until now. See Mom again, find out the truth, get revenge. But with each passing moment in this strange place, it felt like something larger was waking up inside me. Something older. Something angry? John stood up and walked to the center of the dojo. He picked up a long, cloth-wrapped object and tossed it to me. I caught it, unwrapped it, slowly revealing a blade. Not just any blade. This one pulsed with energy, almost like it was breathing. Its edge shimmered like obsidian laced with starlight. "You'll need this," John said. "Not just to fight, but to survive what's coming." I looked at the blade, then back at him. "So what now?" John turned, his cloak fluttering as he stepped toward the temple doors. "Now," he said, "you train." The following day, training began. Sensei John stood in the center of the dojo with an old scroll in hand, its symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. "These," he said, unrolling the scroll, "are sigils, ancient markings used by gods, angels, and demons to control realms and minds. Today, you'll begin with the basics, trapping a god." He handed me a brush and ink. "Your will must guide the brush. These aren't mere drawings. You pour your soul into each stroke. Focus on the one you hate most that will sharpen the intent." I gritted my teeth and thought of my mother, of God's cruel indifference. My hand moved instinctively, as if guided by fury. The sigil glowed red, pulsating with heat. John nodded. "Good. Now, learn to repel. Angelic sigils come first." He drew a circular mark on the floor. Its energy made my skin crawl. "Stand within it. Breathe through the discomfort. Channel your resistance." I stood inside the ring. My chest tightened, breath staggered, but I refused to kneel. I bit down the pain, channeled the storm of grief, and after a minute, the glow around me flickered. "You're a fast learner," John said. "Now for the real challenge. Repel both angels and demons. You'll need a dual sigil. Mix fire with sorrow. Combine fury with clarity." The ink began to steam as I drew. When the sigil was done, a wave of force burst outward, shaking the dojo. "Perfect. That's your wall now. No divine or demonic influence will touch you without permission." Then came the sword. He tossed a sheathed blade at me. "This is forged from the remnants of a fallen star. It holds no name yet. It needs your will to awaken." I unsheathed it, and the moment my fingers touched the handle, a crackle of energy danced across the blade. "Emotion is power," John said. "You strike not with strength, but with grief. Defend with hope. Attack with rage." He attacked, no warning. I barely blocked the first blow. My emotions flared, and suddenly the blade shimmered with white-hot energy, as if resonating with my inner chaos. "Good," he smirked. "Now let's break the elements." Over the next weeks, I trained in solitude and in combat. Water flowed from my palms when I focused on longing. Fire erupted from my limbs when I recalled the moment I screamed into the night for my mother. Wind surged with regret. Earth solidified around my body when I vowed to stand my ground. He taught me how to locate hidden nerve points, the sacred ignition switches in the body. A touch to one would enhance my reflexes. 2 would double my speed. 3 would plunge me into a state of warlike violence and momentum, where my blade moved as if possessed by purpose itself. Feel the rage. Let the sadness fuel it. Don't contain it. Direct it. At last, he stood before me, silent. Now, Arwin, it's time you learned the God particle destruction wave. What the hell is that? I asked. He smiled faintly. Your soul weapon. Born from everything you've ever felt and will ever feel. The dojo fell silent. Your soul has been forged by trauma and truth, Sensei John said, his voice like thunder beneath the surface. It's time to unleash the God particle destruction wave, but be warned. This technique isn't something you learn. It's something you become. He walked over to a large stone monolith at the back of the dojo. It was ancient, covered in cracks and glowing runes. This is a god relic. Even divine blades cannot destroy it, but your wave can. I stared at it, sweat forming on my brow. And how do I even begin? Start by remembering everything, he said. Open the wounds. Let them bleed. I knelt. I thought of my mother, her warmth, her death, the silence in the house afterward, the funeral, the photograph I still carried in my wallet. I thought of the veil, the cruel indifference of God, the loneliness, the rage that kept me awake more nights than sleep ever did. Me breath grew shaky. John stood behind me. Now focus all that energy into your core. Let your rage spin inside your chest. Let your sadness pour into it. Turn your grief into gravity. My hands began to glow, veins turning black like ink, spreading through porcelain. The air warped around me, heavy and sharp. I let out a scream no, a roar, and released everything. A blinding sphere of energy launched from my chest, a fusion of flame, sorrow, and raw emotional power. The monolith exploded into dust and light, scattering across the room. It collapsed. John walked over, and for the first time, he looked shaken. You did it, he said softly. That was pure. I coughed, still on the ground. So what now? Now, you're ready. Ready for what? He looked away, as if hesitating to say it. To go deeper into the realm. To meet the Watchers, those who judge the souls between gods and men, and maybe even confront one of the lesser gods. My heart dropped, then surged with adrenaline. Finally, I was one step closer. One step closer to tearing the divine hierarchy apart. One step closer to vengeance. I sat beside Sensei John, letting his words settle like dust after a storm. He looked tired, not physically, but spiritually. Like a flickering flame still burning out of sheer will. You could have done it, I said quietly. You were closer than anyone. He nodded slowly. I tried, when I was younger, before I truly understood the cost. He stared at his own hands, calloused, cracked, and faintly glowing with fading remnants of divine energy. These hands once pulled gods from their thrones, he said. But now, I can barely lift a relic without coughing up pieces of myself. I looked at him, shocked. You mean every time you upgrade my weapons? Yes, he cut in. Every relic I bind to your blade, every sigil I teach you to master, it takes more from me than it gives. But that's how this works now. Divide and conquer. You become the weapon, I become the fuel. You're gonna die because of me. No, he said with steel in his voice. I'm going to live on through you. Silence fell again. I looked at my sword forged by his hands, etched with sigils that repelled demons, angels, and twisted the laws of divinity. Then, let's not waste your soul, I said, gripping the blade tightly. Tell me what I need to do next. He smiled. Next, we train to infuse the sigils into the very skin of your soul. No more tracing them onto paper or cloth. From now on, the God Trap sigils, the repel marks, the anti-angel wards, they must live in your bones, so you can activate them with mere thought. The God realm reacts faster than ink can draw. He walked to a large mural, a divine blueprint of overlapping circles, ancient geometry pulsing with sacred energy. This is the Soul Seal Matrix. It's forbidden knowledge, even among gods. Once we tattoo it into your aura, you'll be able to weave elemental energy, emotion-fueled combat, and sigil manipulation in real time. But it will hurt badly. I stepped forward without hesitation. Do it. John began to chant. Light flared from the mural, and symbols swirled around me like a celestial storm. I screamed, my nerves burned. Not from pain, but from transcendence. My anger, grief, love, all clashed in a wild tempest, then settled into a quiet, steady pulse. When the light faded, I fell to my knees. Everything was silent until I opened my eyes. I could feel the sigils embedded into my soul like fire-branded memories. Elemental energy now pulsed through me in patterns. My sword sang with a voice I hadn't heard before. I felt alive in a way I never knew I wasn't. I looked at Sensei John, his body trembling, more drained than ever. "Don't worry," I told him. "When the time comes, I'll be the weapon you forged." Days blurred into weeks, and weeks melted into months. Half a year had passed in this timeless realm, where food was a suggestion and sleep was more of a ritual than a necessity. And yet, not a day passed without my thoughts drifting back home to my loyal dog, probably curled up near the door waiting for me, and the lazy swish of my pet fishes in the fiber tank outside. Sensei John, ever the quiet guardian, made sure they were never forgotten. "Went back this morning," he'd say after a brutal training session. "Your boy's doing fine," barked at a delivery guy. "Good lungs on that one. Your cousin's been doing well feeding him." He even remembered the little things. The flea meds, the heartworm tablets, making sure the auto timer for the tank lights was still working. Sometimes I'd catch him smiling faintly when he talked about it, a man who once felt betrayed by the idea of love now going out of his way to keep mine alive. "You didn't have to," I told him once. "I did," he said, "because it's the only thing keeping you human." He wasn't wrong. In this place, where pain was currency and emotion was magic, it was easy to lose yourself to become a vessel of vengeance with no soul behind the eyes. But thinking of my dog, those lazy summer mornings when he'd paw at my bed, the calm, bubbling sound of the fish tank while I sipped coffee, those memories anchored me. It reminded me of why I was doing this. Not just for my mother, but for every single thing the gods took from me without asking. Every quiet moment, every ounce of peace, they stole it, and I'm going to take it all back. One evening, after an especially grueling training session that left my limbs trembling and my spirit ragged, I noticed something curious, tucked away in a small wooden shelf at the corner of the dojo, a modest but refined collection of vintage bourbon bottles. Dusty labels, amber glow, expensive stuff. I walked over, eyes scanning the bottles like I was looking at relics of a forgotten time. "How the hell did you get this?" I muttered aloud, half joking, half serious. From behind me, Sensei John's voice cut through the still air. "You want a drink?" I turned, slightly caught off guard. "Wait, seriously?" He nodded and stepped over with a couple of weathered glasses. He poured us each a drink with the casual grace of someone who's done this 1,000 times before. I took a sip. It burned the way all good bourbon does, with that slow warmth that crawls into your chest and reminds you you're still alive. "So," I asked, still swirling the drink in my glass, "how did you manage to get your hands on this stuff?" Sensei smirked, his eyes gleaming with a mix of mischief and memory. "Well," he began, "back when I used to jump through the veil looking for someone like you, I'd make pit stops. There's this whiskey shop I liked in Kyoto. Fancy place. I may or may not have borrowed a few bottles when the owner wasn't looking." I nearly spat out my drink. "You stole bourbon? You're a goddamn archangel." He laughed, not a chuckle, a real full-bodied laugh, the kind that felt like it hadn't happened in a while. "What?" he said, grinning. "Can't an angel enjoy a drink without paying once in a while?" I shook my head, laughing too. "Guess you really did fall." "Fell hard," he said, raising his glass. "To free will." We clinked glasses, and for a moment, the war, the gods, the grief, all of it faded. It was just two men, scarred by the past, sharing a stolen drink in the eye of a cosmic storm. And it felt damn good. The next day, I trained as usual, patiently waiting for Sensei to give me the green light for some sort of a trial. "It's time," Sensei John said, stepping into the training hall, his presence heavy, like the air knew something was about to shift. I stood up fast. My muscles twitched with anticipation. "About fucking time, Sensei," I muttered, cracking my neck. "I've been dying to get physical. All this training, all this sweat, this pain, it better be worth something." Sensei didn't respond with words. Instead, he walked over to the back of the dojo and opened a hidden panel in the floor. Dust kicked up as he slid the cover aside, revealing a stone staircase that spiraled downward into darkness. It pulsed with ancient energy, the kind that felt like it shouldn't be touched, let alone entered. "This is where your first real trial begins," he said, his voice serious now. "You've trained your body, your mind, and your soul. But none of it matters until you see how you hold up against a real threat." I stared into the descending spiral and felt my pulse rise. "What's down there?" I asked. He turned to me, eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. "An echo of a god. A fragment of something old. Dangerous. Malicious. It'll test everything, your sigils, your sword work, your emotions. If you fail, it will consume you." I smirked. Sounds like a fun first date. Sensei handed me my gear, the emotion-imbued blade, the elemental sigil scrolls, and the relic-marked gauntlet for channeling destruction waves. I took a deep breath. This wasn't training anymore. This was war. I descended the spiral stairs, every step echoing into the silence like a countdown to something I wasn't ready for. The air got colder, denser, like I was walking into a forgotten tomb. My breath felt heavier. A sliver of fear snuck in, and doubt wasn't far behind. What if I die here? But I shook it off. I didn't come all this way to hesitate now. As I reached the bottom, the spiral staircase behind me twisted shut like a vanishing dream. Gone. Just like that. No turning back. No bonfires. This wasn't a game. I stepped into the hall, pitch black except for faint glowing sigils etched into the stone walls, humming low and eerie like a song sung in reverse. And then I saw it. Chained in the center of the room stood a hulking, grotesque figure. A god. Or what was left of one. Its body was built like a tank, but its face, it was something straight out of a nightmare. A monkey's face, twisted and scarred, half burnt and stitched together with what looked like veins of molten gold. In its massive hand, it held a double-edged axe taller than me, the blade chipped and blood-stained. As I got closer, its head snapped up. Its eyes, all 6 of them, locked on me. It snarled something in a language that made my ears ring and my skin crawl. Like it wasn't just sound, but raw hate punching through my bones. Then, crack. The chains exploded off its body in a shockwave of dark energy. Dust flew. The ground rumbled. It charged at me. I barely had time to draw my sword. My training kicked in. Now it begins. The beast charged like a freight train. Axe raised high. I dove to the side, barely dodging as the ground behind me shattered from the impact stone, cracked like glass. I slashed upward. My blade caught its side, but it barely flinched. It backhanded me with its free arm. I flew, slammed into a pillar, ribs cracking. I tasted blood. Pain. It felt like lightning in my spine. I coughed, tried to stand, and it was already on me again. It roared, swung the axe. I blocked with my sword. The force sent me skidding backwards, feet dragging grooves into the stone floor. Too fast, too strong. I activated my elemental sigils. Fire spiraled along my blade. Wind surged through my veins, enhancing my speed. I countered, slashing again and again, cutting across its arms and legs. It grunted a flicker of recognition. Pain, but then, crack. The axe came down. I blocked, but the shock split my blade in half. I staggered. The beast grabbed me by the throat and lifted me up like a rag doll. Its breath stank of decay and sulfur. It spoke again, that damn language burning into my head like knives. Then, I saw her, my mother's photo in my mind. Her smile, her warmth, her death. Something snapped inside me. The rage erupted, like a dam breaking, like the sky tearing apart. My veins lit up with God particle energy. The air around me vibrated. Symbols ignited across my skin, pain sigils, anger sigils, wrath runes that should have killed me just by activating. My right arm burst into flame. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I roared. Berserk mode. Initiated. I grabbed the beast's wrist and broke it. It howled. I dropped down, landed, and punched straight into its chest. Sigils on my knuckles exploded, sending shockwaves that flung the monster back. It tried to rise. I was already on top of it. I summoned the elemental blade, fire, wind, lightning, and sadness forged into a spear of molten fury. With both hands, I rammed it straight into the god's chest. It screamed, tried to claw at me, but I wouldn't stop. I headbutted it. Again. And again. My blood and its black ichor mixed in the air like cursed rain. Then I reached into the wound, past the flesh, past the armor, past its damn soul, and I ripped its heart out. It thrashed. Once. Twice. Then it stilled. Breathing heavy. Bloodied. Shaking, I stood over its corpse. My rage flickered, slowly fading, and all I could say was, 1 down. The spiral door reformed behind me, carved with new runes that glowed faintly like the realm itself was acknowledging my trial. I stepped through, dragging my feet like a man who just walked out of a war zone. Sensei John stood there, arms folded, eyes calm but proud. "Congratulations," he said, nodding. "You survived." I didn't smile. "You didn't tell me it would be real," I said. "I thought I'd be sparring with a memory or echo, not something that wanted to kill me." John looked at me, quiet for a second. Then he said, "That was an echo. Just not a harmless one." I frowned. "You're saying that wasn't an actual god?" He shook his head. "No, it was a fragment, a soul shard. A remnant of a god I once defeated, one of the brutal ones. I trapped a sliver of its soul in a memory tablet and anchored it here in Dimension 3, bound by runes and will. It's not conscious like a living god, but it remembers how to hate. It remembers how to fight." "Then how the hell was it able to hurt me like that?" I asked. I felt everything. The hits, the blood, the pain, my bones breaking. Sensei pointed at my body. "Look again." I glanced down. No wounds, no scars. My shirt was torn, but there was no blood. My hands were steady, my breathing calm. Even the phantom pain in my ribs had faded. "It wasn't physical," said Sensei. "It was a battle of will, of mind and spirit. That arena forces your soul into combat. You weren't fighting with your body, you were fighting with who you are." I swallowed hard, thinking about the rage that overtook me, the uncontrollable surge of raw emotion that let me tear through a godlike being. "So, what? It was all in my head?" "No," John said. "It was in your soul. That's where true battles happen." I sat down on the steps, suddenly exhausted beyond belief. "You put a god's memory in my path, and didn't think to warn me?" "I needed to see if your will was strong enough," he replied. "And more importantly, you needed to see it." He walked up beside me and placed a flask of bourbon in my hand. "You're one step closer now, Arwin, but don't get comfortable. That was a ghost of a god. The real ones, they'll make you wish you stayed in that arena." I took a sip. The warmth burned going down, but I welcomed it. After the battle, I was still buzzing not from excitement, but from something quieter, more hollow. Sensei John must have sensed it too, because he clapped a hand on my shoulder and said, "Let's go home." Those 3 words hit harder than any blow I'd taken in that dark arena. "A change of scenery," he added. "Returning to familiarity might give your soul something to anchor to. You've been in Dimension 3 long enough. It's time to remind yourself what you're fighting for." I nodded. "Home? It sounded so far away." We stepped through the veil, and for a moment it felt like falling into a memory. The air smelled like rain and asphalt. The hum of traffic. The faint bark in the distance, my dog. I was back. I dropped to my knees the second I saw him. That wagging tail, those excited eyes. I didn't realize how much I missed something. As simple as unconditional love. No words, no gods. Just my dog, doing circles around me like I was the center of the universe. The fish were still alive, swimming in slow rhythm in their tank. Everything looked the same, yet I felt different, like I didn't fully belong here anymore. A half-shadow trying to fit back into light. Sensei John made himself comfortable, lounging on my couch with a glass of bourbon and a bag of chips he probably stole from a convenience store. "We'll stay for a week or 2, he said. "Let the dust settle. Let your mind breathe." He looked out the window. "In the meantime, my people are gathering intel. Trusted ones. Some I fought beside during the rebellion. Others I saved from execution after I was cast out. They're tracking whispers. Where the gods roam. Who among them might be vulnerable? Which ones are plotting? The balance is shifting, and soon we'll have enough pieces to move the board." I looked at him. "You still trust them?" "I trust pain," he said, exhaling smoke. "And anyone who's been through enough of it won't lie about the fire." I sat down on the floor beside my dog, petting him slowly. 2 weeks. That's all I had before we walked back into the abyss. But for now, I was home. How I missed the neon lights. It was like time stood still. The glow of the corner ramen shop still flickered with that same half-broken sign. Streetlights buzzed like tired sentinels, and rain puddles mirrored the city skyline like warped memories. Everything looked the same, too, same like the world refused to acknowledge I'd been gone at all. But I wasn't the same. I stood there in the middle of my street, letting the city noise wash over me. Tires on wet asphalt. Muffled laughter from a nearby bar. The hum of life moving forward, unaware of the war I was about to bring into its heart. A wave of déjà vu crashed into me when I saw the bench near the 24-hour laundromat. My mom used to sit there waiting for me after school. She always said the world looked different under neon. More honest, more raw. Back then, I never got it. Now I do. I pulled my hoodie tighter around me, hands deep in my pockets. Sensei John was walking a few steps behind me, whistling something that sounded like jazz. Probably stolen from the 1,950 seconds, like everything else about him. "You all right?" he asked, not looking at me. I nodded, but I wasn't. Not really. I just forgot what normal felt like, I said. And now that I'm here, it feels wrong. Like I'm just borrowing this peace. "Peace is an illusion," he muttered. "But nostalgia, that's the real hell." We kept walking. Under the neon haze. I felt lonely. There was a time when my phone would light up with calls from people who actually gave a damn, friends checking in, family wanting to talk. Now, the only calls I get are from insurance agents, banks trying to push credit cards, or someone asking if I need better coverage. That's the only kind of attention I get these days. I thought about my mom's older sister. She passed away exactly 1 year after my mom did. She was like a second mother to me. Back when I was a kid, she looked after me when mom was off, working, fed me, tucked me in, made the world feel safe. We used to live next door, neighbors in every sense of the word. Until one day we moved to a bigger, permanent house, a corner lot, a better place. And just like that, we left her behind in that old rented home. I didn't visit her enough after that. I knew she was lonely. She'd call me often, asking me to come stay the night, promising to cook all my favorite dishes. I always said some other time. That other time never came. And then she was gone. I've got regrets more than I can count. Why does everyone I love end up dead? Why the hell was I even brought into this world if it's just suffering and funerals? I told Sensei John about her, about how much I miss her. He didn't say anything, just listened. Calm, present. He understood because deep down, he knew the pain of separation too well. Mortals like us don't get the luxury of time. We bleed. We mourn. We don't get to live forever like those smug gods who sit on their thrones, untouched by grief, immune to loss. Those high and mighty bastards. Sensei John crouched beside me. He didn't say anything at first, just lit a cigarette and let the smoke rise into the neon-drenched sky like a fading prayer. The city kept moving around us, oblivious. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, a lonely echo in the night. "You're angry," he finally said, "and you should be. Because this life, it isn't fair. Not by a long shot. But what you do with that anger, that's what makes you dangerous. That's what the gods fear." I didn't respond right away. My throat was tight. I hated how he understood, but at the same time, I needed it. I looked up at the sky, where the stars were drowned out by the lights of the city. "I'm gonna make them pay," I whispered, "for every missed call, every empty chair at the dinner table, every fucking goodbye that came too soon." Sensei nodded, the fire from his cigarette burning low. "And I'll help you do it." I felt hungry all of a sudden. Ever since we got back home, it's like my old self started creeping back in. I'm feeling hunger again, thirst hell, even my bathroom schedule's back to normal. I guess even the darkest journey can't kill off the human need to eat, drink, and, well, you know. We decided to have dinner at a local ramen shop. I went with my usual extra large ramen noodles and a nice cold beer. Sensei ordered the same, except he paired his with a white coffee, a local specialty around here. I devoured my food without mercy. Hunger hit me hard, and I didn't hold back. Tossed in a couple of steamed pork buns, too. They were piping hot, soft, and just what I needed to finish the meal. After I paid, we took a slow walk back home, but stopped by the park on the way. The full moon was out, big and silver, hanging above the city like a silent watcher. We sat on a bench, soaking in the quiet. I told Sensei about how me and Mom used to sit in the garden back home, just staring at the moon. We talk about everything and nothing. I even had a telescope back then, and I remember showing her the Andromeda Galaxy through it. Just a blur of stars, but she smiled like it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Good times, warm, quiet, and safe. Memories like that, they don't really fade. They just hurt a little less when you share them with someone who gets it. By the time we got home, it was already past midnight. I went straight to my room, crashed on the bed, and knocked out cold the moment my head hit the pillow. Sensei made himself comfortable on the couch in the main hall, said something about liking the open space. I was too tired to question it. The silence of home wrapped around us, and for the first time in a long while, things felt almost normal. I woke up around 10 a.m. The house was quiet. Sensei was still asleep on the couch in the main hall, wrapped in a blanket, like some ancient warrior taking a well-deserved break. I splashed some cold water on my face, brushed my teeth, then hit the shower hot water, washing away the leftover drowsiness. Felt good. I headed to the kitchen and started making coffee for the both of us. The familiar hum of the coffee machine and the hiss of the milk steaming wand probably stirred him awake, because not long after, I heard footsteps. At least I didn't have to sip my coffee alone today. I was grateful for that. Grateful for his company. Ezio, my dog, came trotting over, tail wagging wildly when he saw Sensei approaching. Sensei gave him a curious look and asked, "What's your dog's name?" "Ezio," I said. He raised an eyebrow. What a strange name. But it sounds kind of cool. I chuckled. It's from one of my favorite video games, Assassin's Creed. Sensei stared at me like I'd just spoken an alien language. Clearly, video games weren't part of his ancient celestial curriculum. We sat down and enjoyed our coffee together. Sensei took a sip and immediately nodded in approval. "Damn, this is good. You've got a gift." I smirked. I know, everyone in my family says the same thing. They always ask for a cup when they come over. Sensei headed into the kitchen and whipped up some simple boiled eggs for breakfast. We ate together, already talking about what we were going to devour for lunch. Apparently, he had a specific food stall in mind. I wasn't about to argue Sensei always had a sixth sense for good food. After breakfast, we lazed around a bit. Sensei scrolled through some old books he kept hidden in a leather pouch that looked like it'd been through 5 wars and a hurricane. I fed Ezio, topped up the fish tank, and then we got ready to head out for lunch. Sensei led the way, telling me about this food stall tucked behind an old row of shophouses near the Riverwalk. Said it had the best char kwai teo he'd ever tasted, better than anything served, even in the celestial banquet halls. I found that hard to believe, but hey, he was buying, so I played along. We got there around 1 p.m., and damn, the place was packed. Locals queued like it was some hidden shrine of flavor. The uncle manning the wok was going full beast mode, flames flaring, spatula clanging like a battle axe against the giant iron pan. The air smelled like garlic, soy, smoke, and magic. We ordered 2 plates of char kwai teo, extra cockles, extra wok, hey. Sensei also insisted we try the sendo from the next stall, saying something about needing a balance between fire and ice. When the food came, I didn't say a word. 1 bite and I was gone. The noodles were greasy perfection, smoky, savory, sweet, and spicy all at once. Sensei wasn't lying. Dude even did that little satisfied sound after his first mouthful. We were like 2 monks worshipping the altar of street food. Midway through, Sensei looked at me and said, "You know, in all my years of fighting demons and defying gods, nothing beats a good meal under a warm sun with a loyal companion." I smiled. Who knew an archangel could be such a foodie? He grinned back, a speck of chili stuck to his beard. Even warriors of heaven have taste buds. After we finished, we just sat there, people watching, the occasional breeze brushing past us like a whisper from the past. No plans, no pressure. Just a solid lunch, shared between 2 lost souls gearing up for war. We took the long way back home, walking past the old river path with bellies full and heads slightly foggy from the heavy lunch. The kind of fog that made you want to nap under a tree. I was halfway through a story about this stray cat that used to lurk behind my house when Sensei suddenly stopped in his tracks. He didn't speak, just scanned the area, his head turned slowly toward the rooftops, then down the street behind us. His eyes weren't just watching. They were reading the space like he was listening to a song only he could hear. He stood still, confused. "What's up?" I asked casually, trying not to sound uneasy. His voice was low. "We're not alone." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I've felt it since we left the food stall," he said. "There's a presence. Several, actually. Keeping their distance. Trained to stay in shadows, to blend in." My stomach tightened. "Who?" I asked. "People?" He shook his head slowly. "No, not people." We said nothing after that, just walked like nothing was wrong. But I started to feel it too, an itch at the back of my neck. a weight in the air, like someone breathing down your soul. When we got home, I went straight for the CCTV monitor and flipped through the different angles around the house. Sensei stood over me, calm but alert. His eyes locked on the screen. "There," he said, pointing at the street across from us. Two figures stood there, just slightly off angle, pretending to look at their phones. A third flickered into frame on the side alley cam. Even through the grainy footage, it felt off, like they didn't belong here. "What are they?" I finally asked. Sensei exhaled, still watching the footage. "Demons," he said simply. I froze. "What?" "They're not always horned beasts or fire-breathing monsters like in those old stories. Some are subtle, intelligent, shapeshifters. These ones are scouts, eyes and ears of the underveil. They're watching us." "Why?" I asked, pulse-climbing. "How'd they even find us?" "They must have picked up traces of our energy when we jumped realms," he replied. "You're not exactly invisible anymore. You're glowing with the kind of power that attracts attention." The footage looped. The figures were gone. "Are they dangerous?" He turned to me, serious. "Not yet. But they will be. This was just reconnaissance. They're checking if you're ready. If I'm weak, they don't make moves unless they know they can win." He swallowed hard. "What do? "We seal this place tonight," he said. "Demon traps, angel, proof sigils, everything. No more casual outings. We just became a problem they want to erase." I stepped back from the CCTV monitor, heart racing a little too fast. The thought of those demon scouts lurking outside wasn't what scared me most. It was the idea of them getting too close to my home, my space, my dog. "I don't like this," I muttered. "We shouldn't stay here. Not while those things are out there." Sensei turned to me, one brow raised. "This place is warded," he said. "I'll make it stronger." "No," I said firmly. "It's not about us anymore. I don't want them sniffing around here and putting my neighbors or friends at risk. And Ezio, he's just a dog. He wouldn't even know what hit him if they tried anything." Sensei looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right." He understood. Of course he did. He'd seen enough loss in his own time to know how fragile peace was, how quickly the things we love could be used against us. "We'll stay at a motel," I said. "Cheap one. No names, no cards. Just cash." "Smart," Sensei said. "Demons don't trace credit transactions, but they do feed off routine. Familiar locations. Emotions tied to places. If we vanish from the pattern, we throw off their scent." Within an hour, we had what we needed, just the essentials. I packed light, threw some clothes and gear in a backpack, left Ezio with an old friend from the shelter, someone I trusted more than myself when it came to taking care of animals. Told her it was just a short trip. She didn't ask questions, just smiled and said, "You're always welcome to drop him off, anytime." By sunset, we were checked into a small budget motel at the edge of town. Faded neon buzzed above us. New Moon Inn. How ironic. The room smelled like stale air freshener and cheap detergent. The bed creaked when I sat on it, and the walls were thin enough that you could hear the guy next door coughing through the night. But it was perfect. Anonymous, quiet, forgettable. Sensei lit a small charm near the window, a warding flare. It glowed faint blue before settling into the glass, hiding our presence from spiritual tracking. "We're off-grid now," he said, taking off his coat and hanging it on the door. "They won't find us easily." I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. This wasn't home, but it was safe. And for now, that was enough. "Thanks," I said quietly. Sensei glanced at me. "For what?" "For going along with this, for not questioning my gut." He gave a tired smile. "You're not a student anymore. You're becoming a warrior. And a warrior listens to instinct." He leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "We'll lay low tonight," he said. "Then tomorrow we hunt." The morning light filtered through the cracked blinds of the motel room. Dust particles danced in the beam like tiny spirits lost in thought. I sat up on the bed, groggy but focused, phone already in hand. I tapped into the CCTV feed from my house and nearby streets. Nothing. No movement, no shadows where they shouldn't be, no distorted silhouettes, no flickers or warping of the signal like before. "I don't see anything," I muttered. Sensei was already standing by the window, half-dressed in a loose tunic, sipping coffee, like it was sake. "Let me check." He walked over, placed his hand lightly on the screen of my phone. His eyes narrowed as a faint glyph shimmered across his irises. After a beat, he stepped back. "They're not there anymore," he confirmed. "They've either backed off, or they're hiding deeper." Either way," I said, "we're not waiting for another sneak-up. we take the fight to them. Sensei gave a slow, approving nod. That day, we kept it quiet, bought some supplies, grabbed lunch at a rundown diner a few blocks away. But the moment we returned, we began prepping the room. Sensei etched a sigil trap beneath the ratty motel carpet, hidden beneath the faded pattern. He carved an angelic seal into the ceiling vent with a glowing blade made of condensed spiritual light. The air pulsed gently after he finished, a subtle pressure hanging like a storm cloud. He turned to me. One for containment, one for truth extraction. What if they resist? I asked, setting down a bucket filled with salt, red chalk, and blessed nails. They will, he smirked. That's what you are for. The bait plan was simple. Use a small pulse beacon made of celestial residue, just enough to draw attention without alerting the higher powers. A whiff of that energy, and any lesser demon worth its claws would come sniffing. By evening, the traps were ready. The motel room looked ordinary, but every inch of it had been weaponized. Even the doorknob had a disguised ward etched into it. I turned off the lights, sat on the bed, waited. Hope this works, I muttered. Sensei leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes half shut, but focused. It will. Then the room turned cold. A sudden drop, like the air got sucked out of existence. The light from the street lamps outside flickered. My skin prickled. Something was here. A shadow crept beneath the door. Sensei's hand twitched. Showtime. The shadow stretched unnaturally long, like spilled ink slithering beneath the door. I clenched my fists. My heart pounded, but my body stayed still, just like we trained. The doorknob turned slowly. No knock. No sound, just the creak of metal moving against itself. Then the door swung open. The room didn't invite it. The demon stepped in anyway. It didn't look like some horned beast or cliché monster from a cheap horror film. It was tall, lanky, humanoid in shape, but wrong in all the small ways. Its joints bent at strange angles. Its face flickered, like a broken hologram stuck between forms. Its eyes, if you could even call them that, were hollow pits filled with static. It sniffed the air, took one step forward. That's when Sensei snapped his fingers. The room ignited with radiant symbols. A flash of blue light shot from the ceiling. Chains of golden light burst up from the floor, wrapping around the demon's limbs mid-stride. The creature let out a shriek, metallic, otherworldly, painful. The sigils on the wall began glowing one after another, locking into place. No! Sensei shouted. I leapt forward, pulling the blessed chain we'd hidden under the bed. It clicked into the center trap circle, latching through a spectral anchor carved with divine script. The demon thrashed, howled, but couldn't break free. Its form glitched in and out, trying to phase through. No use. The angelic seal above prevented dimensional shifting. Sensei stepped forward, his voice deep and commanding now. State your origin. Who sent you? Why have you been following us? The demon hissed, black fluid spilling from its mouth. You, traitor, fallen. Sensei didn't flinch. I said, speak clearly. The chains tightened. The sigils flared brighter. It writhed, then finally broke. The gods, they know he's alive. The demon turned its eyes toward me. You, the grief bearer, the one whose sorrow bends dimensions. My blood went cold. What do they want from me? I asked. The demon choked on its own breath, then muttered, to stop you before your pain becomes prophecy. And then it screamed a high, broken sound before imploding into ash, the sigils flickering out like dying stars. We stood in silence for a moment. Guess they know you're coming, Sensei said quietly. I stared at the pile of ash, fists clenched. Good. We didn't speak for a few minutes, after the demon's ash settled. Sensei stared at the fading sigils, his expression unreadable. I poured us each a glass of water, more out of habit than thirst. My hands were still trembling slightly. Not from fear, but anticipation. They know I'm alive, I said, breaking the silence, which means it's only a matter of time before more come. Sensei nodded. And the ones that come next won't be scouts. They'll be hunters. I sat down at the edge of the bed, swirling the water in the glass. We can't just wait for them to come. I want to find them before they find us. Sensei smirked. Good. You're thinking like a tactician now. I raised an eyebrow. So what's the plan? He walked over to the small table by the window, pulling out a thick, leather-bound notebook. It looked ancient. Pages yellowed, edges burned. He opened it and pointed at a sketch, an intricate symbol shaped like a branching tree, with eyes embedded in its roots. This, he said, is the mark of ether sight. A sigil that reveals hidden trails, energy residue left behind by demons, angels, gods, even astral anomalies. You can track them? Sensei nodded. I'll need a few ingredients from a nearby occult supply shop. Nothing illegal, at least not by human standards. But I'll need your help to activate it. I'm in. We spent the next few hours prepping, drawing the mark on a large map of the city, dipping thread into angel oil, mixing crushed stardust with grave ash. It all sounded like bullshit fantasy stuff, but I'd seen too much to question it anymore. By nightfall, we were ready. Sensei pressed his palm to the mark, and I did the same. A shockwave of energy pulsed outward light, bending around us, like gravity was being distorted. The ink glowed, then started drawing lines by itself across the map. 3 major intersections. 2 church, and 1 abandoned warehouse at the edge of the industrial zone where the lines converged. That's where we go next, Sensei said. To find out who's watching us, I added. No, Sensei corrected me. To find out why. The warehouse reeked of rust and rot. Corrugated metal groaned in the wind like the place was breathing. Sensei and I stood just outside the heavy sliding door, cloaked in a silence that felt like the calm before a cosmic storm. No turning back now, I muttered. Never was, Sensei said, cracking his knuckles. He drew a short silver-bladed dagger etched with old divine runes. Let's raise some hell. We kicked the door open. Instantly, the space was alive with dark energy. Shadow figures began to move. 7 at least. Demonic snarls echoed from every corner of the warehouse. Some crawled on the walls like insects. Others towered with bone-armored bodies and blazing red eyes. Trapsigil set, he asked. Already activated, Sensei said. Then they charged. I parried the first demon's strike with my arm blade, its claw raking sparks as it scraped against my forearm guard. I spun and drove my knee into its face, sending it flying across the room and crashing into rusted shelves. 2 more leaped at Sensei. He flicked his dagger in midair and whispered something ancient. A flash of white light burst from the blade, vaporizing 1 demon entirely. The other recoiled, shrieking as its wings burned mid-flight. A hulking demon with molten skin roared and rushed me. I ducked, slashed its tendons, then flipped over its back, stabbing downward through its spine. My sword pulsed, channeling raw elemental energy I'd mastered over the months. Flames erupted and reduced the beast to ash. We were overwhelmed, but not outmatched. With a guttural war cry, I entered my berserk mode, my pulse sinking with rage and sorrow. My vision blurred red. Movements sharpened. I became faster, stronger, deadlier. I tore through them like a divine storm. Then, from the shadows, the last one emerged. A leaner demon with sharp features, cloaked in layers of corrupted cloth, marked with sigils of the underworld. He tried to flee. Sensei and I were ready. The sigil trap above the rafters ignited threads of glowing scripture dropping like chains. They wrapped around the demon midair and slammed him into the ground. The second layer beneath the carpet flared to life, locking him down with a scream of arcane energy. Time to talk, I growled, stepping closer. The demon hissed and spat black ichor. You don't know what you've done. I will if you start explaining, I said, pressing my blade to its throat. He stared at me, twitching with panic. Then finally, he broke. The underworld, the demon lord himself gave out the bounty. For your head. Why? I asked. Because the gods demanded it, he gasped. They've seen you. They fear you. The prophecy is true. A mortal trained by a fallen archangel, destined to kill the divine. Sensei's eyes narrowed. So they know. They always knew, the demon whispered. But now you're real. They know your face. The demon lord sent 5 bounty hunters his best. They're already here. You won't survive. I felt my jaw tighten. And what happens if you go back to him empty-handed? The demon trembled. He'll flay my soul for eternity. Torture beyond death. Then I'll give you the better option, I said coldly. I drew my blade across his neck in one swift, clean motion. His body went still. A faint whisper of gratitude escaped his lips as the light in his eyes faded. The silence that followed was heavy. Sensei stood beside me. It begins now. I nodded. Let them come. And in my mind, I repeated the same vow over and over. I will burn heaven to the ground, if I have to. Night fell with a suffocating silence. The air around the motel turned unnaturally cold. Street lamps flickered as if afraid to stay on. The moon, once full and bright the night before, now hid behind a veil of bruised clouds. Something was coming. Sensei was already up, seated by the window, eyes narrowed. I sat on the edge of the bed, tightening my gloves, my weapon beside me, humming with restless energy. "He's here," Sensei said. I didn't ask how he knew. I looked through the window and saw him. Prota, a towering figure, emerged from the far end of the street, moving with unnatural grace for something that big. His body looked carved from obsidian and bone muscles layered like armor. 2 massive horns curved from his temples, twisted like tree root. But the worst part? One enormous, singular eye glowing, white-hot in the middle of his face. No mouth, no nose, just that eye. Watching. "He's not just any bounty hunter," Sensei said, rising. "He's one of the old ones, a soul devourer, cyclopean class demon, probably fused with ancient cursed relics." "So, what's the plan?" I asked. "There is no plan," Sensei said calmly, gripping his dagger. "Just don't get hit by his gaze." Before I could even nod, the walls of the motel shook. Proda had leaped from the street to our floor in one terrifying bound. His massive frame smashed through the outer wall like paper. I was thrown back as plaster and dust filled the room. "You bear the scent of the fallen angel," a deep, thunderous voice echoed despite the demon having no mouth. His eye locked on me. My limbs froze. My thoughts stuttered. Sensei threw a sigil tag toward my chest, snapping me out of the trance. "Move!" I rolled just in time to dodge a sweeping claw that carved the motel bed in two. The fight exploded. I unleashed an elemental wave earth energy from the ground, erupting to knock him off balance. Crota barely flinched. He swung a fist the size of a small car, clipping my side and sending me crashing through the bathroom door. My ribs screamed. I tasted blood. Sensei went in fast, slicing at Crota's legs with rapid cuts, forcing the demon back. Crota retaliated by stomping, sending out a shockwave of raw kinetic force that shattered every window within 3 rooms. I stood up, enraged, my body igniting with berserk mode energy. This time, I channeled both my rage and sorrow, drawing deep from everything I'd been through. My mom, her sister, the loneliness, the pain. My aura erupted in a brilliant silver-red flame. I roared and dashed toward Crota, dodging his gaze. My blade aimed straight for his eye. He roared, too late to counter. My sword sank into his eye. A burst of blinding energy exploded through the room. Crota staggered, clawing at his face. I didn't stop. I slashed downward, cleaving into his chest, exposing core bone. Sensei threw a trapping sigil onto his exposed wound, binding him in place for a moment. "You're not killing this one," Sensei said, panting. "We need info." Crota writhed, pinned by both pain and holy restraint. I approached, my blade dripping with ichor. "Start talking, freak." The eye flickered. A voice crawled into our minds. "You are cursed by prophecy, mortal, and I am only the beginning." Crota's eye dimmed just a little, his breathing ragged, black smoke escaping from the cracks in his chest. The holy sigil held him in place, etched with the essence of archangelic authority, Sensei John's personal touch. I crouched down, sword still in hand, pressing the tip lightly against the base of his exposed rib. "You said prophecy," I muttered. "What prophecy?" Crota's voice seeped into our minds like oil over water. "The God-Eater prophecy." Sensei's face changed. He went stone still. "What the hell is that?" I asked, glancing at him. "You never mentioned this." Sensei gritted his teeth. "Because I never wanted it to be true." Crota chuckled, or something like a wet grinding chuckle. "The heavens quake at the thought of your existence. You are an anomaly, a mortal tied to something older than even the gods, something they failed to erase." I felt something cold twist in my gut. "Who's the one that issued the bounty?" I asked. Crota's eye twitched, as if resisting the words. "The order came from the throne of the High Sky Godspeak himself, but the execution is carried out by the underworld demon lord. He runs the bounty through 5 of his chosen." He paused. "I was the first. How many more are coming?" I asked, my voice low. 4, Crota rasped. "Each worse than the last." I leaned in closer. "Why are the gods afraid of me? What the fuck did I do?" Crota's voice thinned into a whisper, as if revealing a forbidden truth. "You were never meant to be born. Your soul slipped past the weave, slipped past the gates. You carry a fragment of something the gods tried to bury, a weapon, a will, a power meant to bring them down. You are the glitch in their perfect code." I stood frozen. Sensei finally spoke. "It's true. The signs were always there. Your abnormal resistance to celestial interference. the dreams, the obsession. Even your soul signature, it doesn't match this plane. Crota hissed, "Kill me, I won't go back to him." His body shook violently. He was trying to self-destruct. But before he could schlick, I plunged my sword straight through his core. Quick, clean. He stopped shaking. His body fell limp, collapsing into ash and bone. I stood there for a second, breathing, processing. Sensei walked over, placing a hand on my shoulder. "They know now. The prophecy is real, and they'll do everything to stop you." I stared at the pile of remains. My grip tightened around the sword. Then we hunt them before they hunt us. Back at Sensei John's dojo, hidden deep behind a sliding panel, etched with faded celestial runes, lay his secret library, a sanctum of forbidden knowledge, tomes written in dead languages, bound in skin, inked in blood and spirit ash. The smell of old parchment and ancient fire filled the air. Sensei lit a few incense sticks and spoke softly. "This is where we dig into truths that were never meant to be known." He climbed up an old wooden ladder and pulled out a thick black book wrapped in chains. The title was barely legible, scorched into the cover. The Damned Codex, Origins of the Five. He dropped it onto the table. Dust scattered. The room tensed. As we flipped through the pages, diagrams of sigils, demonic emblems, celestial crimes, and fallen champions filled the parchment like whispers from a darker era. Then we found it, Anuk, the Will of the Damned, second bounty hunter. A former celestial warden who was cast down during the Great Purge for disobeying divine orders. She refused to incinerate a mortal village suspected of harboring a god fragment. Her mercy was seen as rebellion. After her fall, she became an instrument of wrath in the underworld. She binds the souls of those who die unjustly, forging them into armor and weapons. She doesn't speak. Her will is guided by the screams of the damned that echo through her obsidian helmet. She doesn't kill to win. She kills to liberate pain. Beneath the description was an illustration, Anuk towering in her jagged armor, tendrils of spirit energy clinging to her gauntlets like lost children. Her eyes glowed from behind her helm, a sickly green light that pulsed with agony. "She's a soul forger," Sensei whispered. "She feeds on grief. The more pain you carry, the stronger she gets." "So I'm basically her ideal opponent," I said, half joking. "Great." We found the next piece of info buried in a side note, an old tracking sigil scrawled in red ink, meant to detect anomalies in soul resonance. Sensei handed me a charm carved with the sigil. "This will let us feel her presence, but it only works when she's close enough. She doesn't stalk like Crota. She descends. You'll feel the air change. The sorrow will thicken." He closed the book. "She'll find us soon. We have a day, maybe two." I looked over at Sensei. "So, how do we prepare for someone who turns sadness into strength?" He smiled grimly. "We turn pain into a blade sharper than hers. You've been through hell. Time to use it." We returned to the Earth realm under the veil of night, arriving through a crack in the dimension not far from an old cemetery on the outskirts of the city. The place hadn't seen a proper visitor in years, but its air was thick, heavy with sorrow, untouched grief, and forgotten names carved in weathered stone. Sensei John stood silently at the rusted gates, taking in the eerie stillness. "This is the perfect place," he said, voice low. "Emotions echo here. Some even linger. The veil is thinnest where pain was never resolved." We walked through overgrown paths, brushing past crooked tombstones, as if the dead themselves were holding their breath. A crumbling mausoleum at the center of the cemetery caught Sensei's attention. "Here," he said. "This is where we set the trap. She'll be drawn to this like a moth to flame." He opened his satchel and pulled out a set of enchanted sigils inked on parchment laced with god ash and crushed sorrow stones. These were binding seals designed to activate once the target stepped into the trap radius. I helped set them up. Under Sensei's guidance, we did the following. Place soul-anchored trap circles in the 4 cardinal directions around the mausoleum. Painted mirror wards above the arch to disorient her spiritually. Engraved sorrow glyphs in the earth using a dagger infused with emotion magic, each one representing a painful memory from my own past. My mother, my aunt. The void I carried. "This will bait her," Sensei said. "You're not just setting a trap. You're inviting her pain to dance with yours." We sat in silence for a while. The moon hung low. Crickets quieted. Even the air seemed still. Then, suddenly, a cold breeze swept through. Not normal cold, soul cold, like the type of chill you feel when someone walks over your grave, or when someone you love dies and the world doesn't care. Sensei opened his eyes. She's coming. Far in the distance, a green shimmer blinked once, like a fading star falling to earth. It moved through the mist, slow and deliberate. Anuk, the will of the damned had arrived. The air had shifted. Heavier now, like the sky itself was pressing down on the earth, forcing everything to hold its breath. Sensei John remained still beside me, eyes closed, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. He wasn't just sensing her presence, he was listening to it. She walks with the weight of 1,000 cursed souls, he muttered. Don't speak unless she speaks. Don't move unless I do. I nodded, my fingers twitching near my own weapon. My heart beat slower than usual, like it too was unsure if it should dare to make a sound. The temperature dropped, and then we saw her. Out of the mist, Anuk emerged, barefoot, gliding across the old stones, as though gravity had given up on her. Her form wasn't solid, not entirely. Tattered robes floated around her like liquid shadow. Her face was concealed beneath a porcelain mask cracked down the middle, and her hair flowed upward unnaturally, like it was underwater. But what shook me was the whispering. It wasn't coming from her mouth. It was coming from everywhere. Thousands of overlapping whispers. Children crying. Men screaming. Women wailing. It was the collective voice of the damned bound to her soul. She was a walking prison of lost spirits. Anuk stopped a few meters from the mausoleum and tilted her head. You, she said, voice distorted like it echoed from a radio tuned to pain, you reek of sorrow. I didn't speak. I could feel my tongue dry up in my mouth. But my fists clenched, my memories stirred. All the grief I carried bubbled beneath the surface. She could sense it. You carry the weight of others, she whispered, like a fool trying to catch falling stars with bare hands. Let them fall. She took a step closer. Why do you fight the inevitable? Why chase gods when you cannot even outrun your own pain? I nearly answered, but Sensei placed a hand on my shoulder. Don't let her speak through you, he warned quietly. She'll wear your sorrow like armor. She feeds on your pain. Anuk chuckled, cold and hollow. Your master speaks as if I haven't already tasted your grief, boy. I know of your mother. I know of the aunt you abandoned. I know of your loneliness. Her words hit like knives, but I bit down and stayed quiet. I could feel the sorrow sigils beneath the mausoleum begin to pulse faintly. She was standing right above them now. Then she stopped. She looked up at the sky, slow, graceful, and spoke to no one in particular. Prophecy, boy, child of regret. The god who fears you will burn all realms to stop your ascension. And then she smiled behind her mask. But I wonder, will you even survive yourself? The mausoleum groaned. The sigils flared. Sensei's eyes snapped open. Now! The sigils blazed to life beneath the cemetery, soil white-hot glyphs etched in blood and faith igniting all around us as Anuk, the will of the damned, stepped into our trap. The ground rumbled with grief. Spirits moaning from every grave like the past was waking up for vengeance. Her form was cloaked in funeral silks, eyes hidden behind a porcelain mask with a jagged crack running from temple to chin. Chains of mournful souls slithered around her, whispering last words and death cries. Sensei muttered, She's stronger than I expected. I gripped my blade tight. How do you fight something built from sorrow? You don't. He drew his weapon. You endure it and then make it scream. With that, the battle erupted. Anuk moved like a flicker, fast, sharp, and ghost-like. Her shadow lunged before she did, landing the first blow, a spiritual tendril that wrapped around my neck and hurled me across a cracked tombstone. The pain seared down my spine, but I rolled back up, spitting dirt and blood. Sensei was already clashing with her in a blur of light and darkness, his divine blade singing through the air, each strike deflected by her spinning soul chains. Sparks flew, emotions echoed with every hit. He wasn't just cutting her, he was battling memories made flesh. She's pulling grief from the graves, he yelled, feeding on pain, twisting it into armor. The cemetery was a war zone. Shattered tombstones, scorched soil, and glowing sigils half erased from the clash. The trap failed. She broke through it like it was tissue paper. Anuk hovered above us, eyes glowing like funeral pyres, mask cracked wide open, revealing the raw sorrow underneath. Her chains were everywhere, constricting the air itself. Sensei John was on his knees, blood dripping from his mouth. I was flat on the ground, my ribs shattered, body trembling, lungs gasping for air like a dying flame. She descended. "You're not worthy," she whispered, her voice layered with countless others. Mothers, fathers, lovers, each tone soaked in agony. "Your journey ends here, forgotten like all mortal things." Her chain wrapped around my neck. She began to crush me slowly, savoring the sound of bones grinding. I saw black. My vision tunneled. Then I heard him. No. Sensei's voice, raspy but clear. "You don't get to die here. Not like this. Not after all you've lost. Not after what they did." His voice hit me deeper than any wound. "They took your mother, your aunt, your peace. The gods. They sat in their golden thrones while you broke apart. They didn't save you. They watched." I opened my eyes. He kept going. "Asterisk, asterisk, this is what they fear. Not your blade, not your strength. Asterisk, asterisk you. Your will. That fire that refused to die even when everything else did." I wasn't breathing anymore. I was burning. My sword, still gripped in my busted hand, began to pulse. The red glow twisted into something unnatural, a neon vapor leaking from the cracks, swirling like smoke from a machine god's lungs. Cyberpunk hues, electric blue, blood magenta, chrome green, flooded the air, curling around the blade like it was feeding off my pain. Anok hesitated. Too late. I stood up. The chain snapped off me like it feared what was coming. The sword screamed, humming with the wails of a million lost voices, amplified, sharpened, weaponized. The vapor around me warped gravity itself, bending sound and light. She stepped back. "What are you?" I didn't answer. I struck. One slash took her arm clean off. Another carved a line from her collarbone to hip. She screamed not in pain, but in terror. The vapor peeled at her soul like acid, eroding the foundation of her being. She dropped to her knees, mask sliding off, revealing a face that was everyone I ever lost and every sorrow I ever buried. "Mercy," she begged. "Please." But I wasn't mercy. I was the result of divine negligence. I was the scream of the broken. I was rage given form. I gripped my sword with both hands and brought it down. Again. I dismembered her, not out of vengeance, but because she stood between me and peace, and that made her no different from the gods who let the world rot. The cyber vapor consumed her piece by piece. By the time I was done, there was nothing left but ashes glowing like stardust on my blade. I stood over the remains, chest heaving, bloodied but alive. Sensei John slowly walked up beside me. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Because the war had only begun, and they would hear about this. The cemetery fell still. The air was thick with that neon vapor, slowly dissipating into the sky like a signal flare to higher realms and deeper hells. The earth trembled for a moment, barely noticeable, like a heartbeat underground. Then, nothing. Anok was gone. Her essence erased. Her name now a whisper the dead wouldn't dare speak. But that kill left ripples. I stood there, breathing ragged, blood still dripping from my arms, my sword humming low like a living thing coming down from a high. The vapor had marked the soil in sigil-like fractures, glowing softly in the dirt like warning runes. Sensei John finally broke the silence. She was connected, a piece of something bigger. That death, it rang loud. I nodded, too tired to respond. I could feel the weight of it all on my bones. That wasn't just a bounty hunter, it was a messenger. And I had silenced it in the most brutal way. Sensei reached into his robes and pulled out a cracked relic, a silver coin, fused with a demon's tooth. It pulsed erratically. "They know," he said. "Who?" I asked, already knowing. He looked up at the sky. The clouds were blackening unnaturally fast, curling into spirals like an eye opening above the world. "The others. The ones hunting you. And worse, the ones watching them." I sat on a broken tombstone, sword resting beside me, and stared up at that swirling dark. "She was begging at the end," I whispered. "She was crying like a child." "She died a monster," Sensei said flatly. "No," I muttered. "She became one." A long silence stretched between us. Then, like a final punctuation mark, thunder rolled across the sky, but there was no lightning. Just a distant, slow applause carried by the wind, faint and mocking. A voice echoed in my head, not Anok's, not Sensei's, something ancient. "You are waking up, child of sorrow, but beware. When the lamb learns to bite, the wolves come faster." I stood slowly, tightening my grip on my sword. "Let them come," Sensei smirked slightly. "Careful what you ask for. We left the cemetery, our shadows stretching far behind us under the bruised sky. The wind carried the scent of iron and ash. The game had changed. We didn't kill a bounty hunter. We declared war. We returned to the dojo just before midnight. The silence was heavy. Even the wind didn't howl through the cracked veil anymore. It was as if the world was holding its breath. Sensei didn't speak much on the way. We both knew we'd crossed another line. Anuk wasn't just another bounty hunter. She was a sentinel, a warning bell, a test of our resolve. But what came next would be worse. As we entered the dojo, I paused. I had this gut feeling, this tingle in my nerves, the kind you get when eyes are watching you from the dark. Sensei didn't even need to turn. They followed us. I smirked. Figured, let's welcome them properly. The ambush? We split up silently. No words needed. We had planned for this kind of thing weeks ago. The dojo's outer courtyard was laced with shadow sigils, silent triggers, demonic scent markers that baited the lesser spawn like flies to rotting meat. 5 of them crept in. Lesser demons, more feral than sentient, dripping in sludge and spite, clawing at the air like they could smell something divine inside the dojo walls. As they crossed the threshold, the sigils activated. Boom. A blinding flare of light exploded upward like hellfire in reverse, pure, soul-scorching light. Their screeches didn't last long. Sensei's barrier spells compressed around them like vice grips. I jumped in and slashed through the collapsing field, my sword cleaving through blackened flesh and charred bone like paper. It was over in seconds. The air sizzled. The dojo's stones hissed with demon blood. Sensei blew the smoke off his charm pendant. We can't keep this place exposed like this for long. I nodded, wiping blood off my blade. Then let's make this count. The damned codex. Back in the hidden chamber beneath the dojo, we reopened the damned codex, a thick tome of black parchment and ink that shimmered with soul residue. The scent of blood and dust hung in the air. Candles lit themselves as we approached the pedestal. Name by name, Sensei said. One at a time. Let's not get lost in this madness. He flipped to the next page. The text rearranged itself, almost like it was alive. Minraya. Neither man nor woman, neither angel nor demon. A creature born of silence and pain. Eyes sewn shut beneath the crimson veil. Its power lies in the voice it never uses, and the sorrow it wears like skin. A sketch bled into view on the page, a figure wrapped in red cloth, every inch of its body pierced with bone rings and rusted metal. No visible face, no visible expression, just presence. Sensei, read aloud, slower now. Minraya walks with the scent of ash. It bends minds. It feeds on memory. You will forget why you fight when you stand before it. You will feel the weight of everything you've lost, and it will smile, unseen, beneath the veil. I stared at the page, my knuckles tightening. This one's different, I said. Not a brute, Sensei replied. A mental assassin. One that strips your identity before killing you. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't going to be just a physical fight. Minraya was going to make me bleed from the inside. I closed the book gently, like sealing something that might bite. Then we hit it first, fast, before it has a chance to crawl inside my head. Sensei gave me a sideways look. We'll need to plan this one with extreme care. This isn't just about swords and rage anymore. I looked at my reflection in the metal edge of my blade. Then it's time I learned how to kill with my mind too. Sensei closed the damn codex and looked at me with a face that wasn't just serious, it was heavy. If we want to beat Minraya, he said, we'll have to do the unthinkable. Turn your pain into a trap. That thing feeds on sorrow like a drug. But what happens when it overdoses? I raised a brow. You're saying I let it in? Not fully, he replied, just enough. You'll need to walk through your own grief, reopen wounds. We'll bait it with your memories and then spring a psychic snare when it gets greedy. The idea sat in my stomach like ice. All right, let's do it, I said, already regretting the words. Deep under the dojo, through an old sealed passage only, Sensei had the key for, we reached a chamber known as the Room of Echoes, a meditation chamber used by celestial monks to revisit and confront past selves. The room was dim, silent. Floating candles drifted in midair, flickering faint blue. At the center, a shallow stone basin filled with memory water, a reflective pool that showed not your face, but your memories. Think of something pure, Sensei said. Something that truly broke you. My hand hovered above the water, and then I touched it. Suddenly, the room shifted. I was home again, younger. sitting beside my mother in the garden, looking up at the moon. She was laughing. The smell of her cooking drifted through the air. I saw her giving me advice I didn't appreciate then. I saw myself brushing her off with that youthful arrogance, thinking there'd always be more time. And then the hospital room, the beep of machines, the stillness of her hands, the way her eyes closed for the last time. And I whispered, "Please don't go," even though it was already too late. Tears welled in my eyes. I wanted to pull back, but I didn't. I reached deeper. Her sister, my aunt, calling me over and over just to talk, to feed me, to be near someone she loved, and me always saying next time. There was no next time, and then I saw the version of me that remained after it all, hollow-eyed, isolated, talking to walls. I opened my eyes. The memory water had gone dark. Sensei knelt beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You've done enough. Now we carve these memories into talismans." Using ancient runes and a small portion of my soul essence, we created 3 memory sigils, each etched with pain but stabilized with resolve. Moonlight talisman, the night with my mother in the garden, pure love and irreversible loss. Echo talisman, my aunt's voice calling me, longing, regret, missed chances. Ash talisman, the broken version of me, post-death, despair, and the fire it sparked. We bound each talisman in psychic glass and layered them with mirror sigils that would reflect emotional force outward. "These aren't weapons," Sensei said, "they're mirrors. When Minraya reaches inside you, it'll see itself swallowed whole in a black hole of sorrow." I nodded, voice low. "Let's give the bastard a taste of real pain." The portal shimmered open again with a low hum, casting a flickering shadow over the dojo floor. Sensei John and I stepped through without hesitation. Back to Earth, back to the place where heaven and hell played chess. But no one noticed the pieces moving. We didn't go back to the old motel. What was left of it was now just scorched rubble and a twisted mess of metal and bricks. On the news, they blamed it on a faulty gas line explosion. Another lie swallowed by the public like a bitter pill. We booked a new place, slightly outside the city. Dingy, cheap, hidden in plain sight. The neon vacancy sign blinked like a dying heartbeat. "This place has the smell of rot," Sensei muttered. I replied, "Perfect. Just the kind of ambiance a demon might enjoy." There's something off about Earth now. The skies don't move right. Clouds spiral in slow, unnatural patterns. The wind sometimes whispers in voices that aren't yours. Animals glance toward things that aren't there, and tech glitches in patterns that feel too deliberate. But only we see the source, the cracks, little tears in reality barely visible to the naked eye unless you've been touched by the other side. People walk past them daily, not seeing the dark hands slowly clawing through. "It's like the world's on mute," I said as we walked through the city. "All this madness, all this violence, and no one hears it scream." Sensei nodded. "That's the curse of awareness. You see the theater of gods, while others only see the curtain." We set up inside the new motel. The talismans were placed on opposite walls, one near the window, one beneath the bed, and the last taped behind the door with a binding glyph. The plan was simple. Accelerate the hunt by walking through spaces where sadness still lingers, by talking out loud to our pain, and by meditating with the talismans, we'd pulse like a beacon in the emotional realm. Minraya would sense it, and Minraya would come, but time felt strange now. Hours passed like seconds. Nights felt too long. People walked outside, laughing, eating, scrolling their phones, completely oblivious to the war blooming just above their heads. The news said there was another freak lightning storm on the East Coast. Another tsunami, another blackout, all just natural disasters. But Sensei and we knew better. "Minraya's close," he finally said, sitting by the motel window, eyes closed. "The veil is thinning." I felt a chill run down my spine, and I whispered, "Let it come. I've got something personal for it." It began with the dreams. Not Mina Sensei's. The first night in the new motel, I woke up to hear him whispering something in a language I didn't recognize. Eyes wide open, pupils dilated, staring at the cracked ceiling like he was watching an invisible movie. He didn't remember any of it the next morning. I told him what I saw, and he went quiet for a long time before finally muttering, "Minraya is not just hunting us, it's infiltrating us." I didn't sleep well after that. The motel TV flickered on by itself around 3 a.m. A late-night ad was playing a woman selling rice cookers, but her face was distorted, elongated, wrapped in red cloth. The screen buzzed, glitched, then cut to black. The next day, my phone kept auto-typing words when I tried to text Sensei. Pierce the soul. Let them scream. No more skin. Every message deleted itself seconds later. When I showed Sensei, he just nodded and said, "It's testing us, tasting our fear, trying to get familiar." 3 nights in, just after midnight, we heard scratching at the motel door. Not tapping scratching. Long and slow, like claws dragging across wood. Sensei rose. Schwarzenhand. We opened the door and found nothing. At first. Then we saw a figure standing across the road. Pale skin, tattered clothing. Its face was wrapped entirely in red silk. I gripped my blade, adrenaline kicking in. Sensei whispered, "That's not Minraya." The figure began to scream, its mouth unhinged like a broken jaw. No sound came out, only blood. It collapsed, and when we rushed over, all that remained was a burnt mannequin, shattered into pieces like glass. "A mimic," Sensei muttered, crouching by the wreckage. "Minraya's probing us, testing our reactions." Was that even human? No, but it used to be. The next day, we noticed our motel room mirror didn't show our reflections anymore. Just a hallway that didn't exist. One time I looked into it and saw myself, but with piercings, red silk across the eyes, and no mouth. "Minraya is almost here," Sensei said grimly. "And it's using fear as its scent trail. We need to be ready." That night, I sat on the motel bed, sword across my lap, heart pounding in rhythm with the flickering motel light. I wasn't just waiting, I was inviting it now. We didn't know when or how it would appear. But the air had changed. The world had gone quiet again. The kind of silence that happens right before something screams. The air grew heavier the moment the mimic's remains touched the ground. A low hum vibrated beneath our feet, like the motel itself was holding its breath. Then, from the shadows near the tree line across the street, Minraya emerged. Not walked. Glided. Their presence was unnatural, the world bending subtly around them like heat above a flame. Wrapped in flowing black robes that moved without wind, Minraya's face was still veiled in that same red silk, tighter now, as if fused with skin. Dozens of metal piercings gleamed across their arms, chest, and neck, each one etched with runes that pulsed faintly in the dark. No eyes were visible, no mouth, but we felt their gaze, deep and violating, like they were crawling through our thoughts. I stepped forward instinctively, but Sensei raised a hand. "Not yet," they whispered. "Let it speak." Minraya stopped at the center of the road. Still. Silent. Then, a voice not from them, but from everywhere invaded our minds. "You made the air taste like war." Their voice wasn't a voice at all. It sounded like grief echoing in an empty cathedral. Like the last scream of something forgotten. I clenched my sword, my body trembling not from fear, but from the pressure of their presence pressing down on me like a vice. "You broke the chain of silence. You reek of vengeance. I was sent to silence you. Then come try," I muttered through my teeth, my rage barely held back. Minraya raised a hand, and the space around them warped. The ground cracked, the motel lights shattered, and every sound in the world died, except for a ringing in our ears. Sensei looked at me, calm but sharp. "Get ready. This one doesn't bleed like the others." Minraya struck. Fast. Too fast. Their body blurred through the air, chains of spectral energy shooting from beneath their robes, each link lined with hooks and screaming faces. The fight had begun, and I had no doubt this one would take everything we had. Minraya's chains screeched through the air like banshees. I dodged one barely, but another wrapped around Sensei's leg and yanked him off the ground like a rag doll. "Sensei!" I shouted, reaching out instinctively, but another chain slammed into the pavement between us, throwing up a cloud of dust and debris. From within the cloud, I heard his voice strained but steady. "Stay sharp, don't let it get in your head." But Minraya already had. The chains twisted and coiled like serpents, embedding into Sensei's chest. Blood sprayed dark and otherworldly, and then something tore in the air behind him. A rip. A crack in the veil. Minraya's runes flared crimson. The sigils on their body pulsed in rhythm with his agony, feeding on the energy. "Sensei!" I yelled again. But it was too late. The crack swallowed him whole, like a paper getting sucked into fire. And just like that, he was gone. I was alone. A silence followed, heavy, cold, unforgiving. Minraya floated before me, head tilted slightly, observing. Their presence made the air feel like lead. My blade hummed low in my hand, like it sensed what was coming. They moved. I parried, sparks flying, the clang of metal against metal echoing across the empty street. Another attack, this time from behind. A chain wrapped around my ankle. I slashed it mid-spin, heart pounding. "You are broken," Minraya's voice crawled into my ears. "Your mentor has vanished. Your will is next." I spit blood to the ground, steadying myself. "You talk too much." I knew I was outmatched, but I wasn't out yet. And I wasn't going to give Minraya the satisfaction of fear. Not after everything the gods took. If they wanted my soul, they were going to have to rip it out of me, one scar at a time. The doubt slipped in like a knife through cloth, quiet but sharp. As brave as I was, a part of me on the inside whispered, "How am I to fight without Sensei by my side? What happened to him? Is he dead? Have I already failed?" My hands tightened around the hilt of my sword. It trembled not from fear, but from the weight of everything pressing down on me. Grief, rage, guilt. I shut my eyes just for a second, forcing the thoughts into a box, sealing them tight. Breathe, focus, play the mental game. That's what Sensei always said. Your mind is your strongest weapon. If they crack that, they don't need to kill you. Minraya didn't move. They just hovered there, watching me like some ancient, sentient riddle, waiting for me to break. But I didn't. I stared right back, letting the silence boil into something heavier than fear. I began pacing slowly, sword dragging along the ground, carving a glowing ember trail, like drawing a boundary between their chaos and my resolve. "You didn't come here to watch," I muttered. "So come on then, let's finish what you started." Minraya twitched, and the air cracked, like static. Game on. The sky cracked. Not thunder, something else. Like reality itself had split open and the world forgot what sound was supposed to be. Minraya moved. Not with footsteps, not with flight, just a blink, and they were there inches from my face. That bandaged head tilted, twitching, unreadable. The scent of ash and rust filled my nose. My instinct screamed, "Move." But Minraya was already mid-swing. I barely brought my blade up in time. The impact launched me backwards, skidding across the asphalt like a broken doll. My shoulder burned. Dislocated, maybe. No time to care. I scrambled up just as Minraya came again, arms flailing like blades, fast and unpredictable. Their piercings chimed in, the wind every hit sounded like metal, screaming. I ducked, rolled, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I slashed upwards, grazing Minraya's side. A burst of black mist sprayed from the wound, sizzling as it hit the ground, but they didn't even flinch. They left. The sound didn't come from their mouth. It came from the walls, the sky, the cracks in the pavement. It surrounded me, echoing like it was trying to get inside my head. I grit my teeth and shouted to drown it out. My sword pulsed, not from magic, from memory. Every loss, every injustice. My mother, my aunt. All the things they took from me. Minraya circled me like a vulture. They raised a hand, and dozens of small figures began to crawl out of the shadows, whispers of dead things, half-formed creatures of sorrow and torment. I was outnumbered, outmatched, and alone. But I wasn't afraid. I don't need a goddamn army, I spat, raising my blade. I just need one clean shot. The blade lit up with that familiar cyberpunk vapor, a ghostly blue neon trail swirling in the air like a serpent, ready to strike. Minraya surged forward, and I charged to meet them. I blinked, and the world changed. 1 second I was charging Minraya, sword humming with fury. The next, I was standing in a vault of crystal shards, a silent cathedral of fractured time. The air was thick with ancient energy. Shards floated in space like frozen echoes of memory, light refracting off them in impossible angles. It felt like I'd stepped into a place that existed between seconds, between past, present, and future. A liminal space where the universe whispered secrets no mortal should hear. And there, rising in the center, Minraya, no longer human-sized, gargantuan, towering like a forgotten god, their body made of flowing obsidian flesh, wrapped in blood-red chains, piercings glowing like dying stars. Their bandaged head pointed downward, as if they were praying, mumbling something in a voice that scraped against reality. A death song. I didn't wait. I roared and charged, leaping into the air with my blade drawn, smack, swatted aside like a gnat. I crashed into a shard, pain exploding through my ribs. I fell, coughing blood, my hands trembling. What the hell is this place? How do I fight something that breaks the rules of space itself? Then a voice, not Sensei's, not mine, something older, echoing from the walls, the shards, the fabric of the space. Follow the dimensional doors when the sigil glows. I scanned the vault. There, glowing runes above one of the many portal doors lining the circular chamber. I ran. Minraya didn't follow. Still praying. Still in trance. That whispery chant, low and dreadful, chilled my spine. I stepped through the portal. Suddenly, I was in a narrow, suffocating dimension, a corridor of dark stone and red mist. Before me stood multiple replicas of Minraya, each cloaked in a crimson negation mark above their heads. The voice again, to avoid death, one must become the cleansing instrument. Just then, a chalice-shaped shield appeared in my hand, transparent but pulsing with light. I gripped it tight, unsure why. But then something changed. The negation marks began to fade, one by one, like ink dissolving in water. Now, cleanse. I dashed forward and slashed through the illusions, each one falling like dust. When the final one crumbled, the door at the end of the corridor glowed white-hot. I sprinted through and was thrown back into the crystal vault. Minraya reeled, their body flickering. They were vulnerable. I didn't hesitate. With a battle cry fueled by grief, rage, and survival, I unleashed everything spinning slashes, cyberpunk vapor trailing like divine smoke, my sword roaring with wrath. I cut deep, black blood spraying across the floor. Minraya collapsed, wounded, still chanting, and then again the shield returned. The trance resumed. The impenetrable aura came back like a cruel joke. I gritted my teeth. Fine, let's dance again. Rinse and repeat. Another portal. Another distorted realm. Another cleansing ritual. With each return, Minraya weakened. Their chant became a scream, and their form grew unstable, like glass cracking beneath pressure. Then, finally, I returned for the last time. And I saw it. Minraya trembling, trying to keep chanting, but their body was splitting. I sprinted. One final slash. My blade sank deep into the chest of the creature. The neon vapor wrapped around their soul like chains of judgment. Minraya screeched, not like a demon, not like a god, but like a broken thing, and their bodies shattered, exploding into vapor and red light. The shards echoing through the vault, like a funeral bell. I stood there, chest heaving, hands shaking. About time that fucking piece of shit died. After defeating that pathetic dimensional space-twisting twat, the air inside the vault shifted. The suffocating pressure lifted just a bit, and something else took its place. A warmth, not fire, not heat, a kind of kindness. Gentle, familiar, like someone placing a hand on your shoulder in the dark. I turned, and there it was. A pulsating energy radiating from a quiet corner of the vault hidden between fractured crystal columns. It called to me like an old friend's voice echoing through a storm. I approached. Laid before me were skeletal remains, aged beyond comprehension, almost fused to the crystalline floor. Clutched in bony fingers was a glowing shard, humming with pure essence, an ancient crystal that looked like it held 1,000 sunsets trapped inside. Then the voice, the same one that guided me through the nightmare. Only now, it felt clearer, realer, like a ghost stepping fully into the light. I once stood where you stood. His voice trembled with age, pain, but also peace. I came to challenge Minraya long ago, but this vault, this cursed place, consumed me. My body fell, my soul fragmented. Yet some small spark remained, whispering through time, waiting for someone strong enough to finish what I could not. I knelt beside his remains. I didn't know his name, didn't know who he once was, but his grief sat beside mine, like an old companion. I shed a tear. Thank you, the voice continued, softer now. Thank you for avenging me, for completing this task. The shard in his skeletal hand pulsed one last time. Take the crystal, infuse it into your sword. My will is your weapon now. Carry it forward. Burn the path ahead. The light from his essence grew brighter for a moment, then faded into nothing. Only silence remained, and then I see you've survived. Sensei John. His voice cracked through the vault, like thunder in spring. I nearly collapsed from the sound of it. Relief hit me so hard, I forgot how to breathe. I thought I'd lost him. Thought this journey was going to swallow me whole and leave me screaming alone in places that didn't belong to time. But hearing his voice, it steadied the blood in my veins. I'm performing a ritual, he said. You'll see a light soon. Rainbow spectrum. Walk into it. It'll bring you home. A moment passed, and just as he promised, a strange, prismatic light swirled into existence at the far end of the chamber, a portal wormhole, bending the crystal reflections into something almost beautiful. I walked toward it, but just before stepping through, I stopped, turned around. The crystal vault, even in its madness, held a strange kind of beauty. Cold, cruel, eternal. But still, majestic. It's funny how there's always something to admire, even in chaos, even in death. I gave it one last look, like saying goodbye to a part of myself I'd leave behind in this strange, godless limbo. Then I stepped into the light, and in a blink, I was home. The air shifted. The scent of incense, the creaking of wood, the quiet sanctuary of Sensei's dojo. I was back. I turned to Sensei, my breath still uneven from everything that just happened. How did you survive? For a split second, the silence between us felt too heavy to break. Then he laughed. A soft, weary chuckle, like someone who danced with death and lived to make a joke about it. Come on, he said, grinning. You think I'd leave you hanging all alone in this crazy god fight? At least, not this early. That warmth in his voice, it grounded me. I hadn't realized just how much I missed hearing it. He limped over to the shrine platform, sat down with a sigh, and poured himself some water. Took a bad hit, he admitted. Nearly split my damn soul in half. But just before the killing blow, I triggered an emergency sigil I had tattooed under my skin. Ancient magic. Cost me a fortune, but he raised an eyebrow. Worth every damn coin. It blocked the follow-up strike and triggered a cosmic shift seal. Dumped me straight back into the dojo. His hand trembled slightly as he raised the cup. Not fear. Fatigue. Power was drained, though. Couldn't jump back into the fight right away. Needed time to recharge. When I finally made it back to the last battlefield, you and Minraya were both gone. He looked at me. Serious now. Took me 14 days to find you. My heart froze for a moment. 14 days? That can't be right. The fight inside the vault, it felt like maybe an hour at most. He opened his mouth to explain, but the answer came crashing into my mind like a sudden lightning bolt. The vault? That beautiful nightmare. Of course, that place didn't just bend time, it shattered it. Twisted it into something unrecognizable. I stood still, putting the pieces together, how the colors inside the vault didn't shift with light, how echoes sounded hours late, how my own breathing didn't match my heartbeat. Time, I muttered. Sensei nodded. He saw the realization in my eyes. You get it now. That place, normal time doesn't apply. Could have been an hour in there for you. Could have been a decade for the rest of us. No rules, no logic. Just echoes of the dead and the weight of forgotten centuries stacked on top of each other. He stood up again, slower this time. That vault, Minraya created it, pulled it from scraps of fractured realms, twisted it together with ritualistic sacrifices, feeding it with centuries of anguish and celestial decay. It's not just a battlefield. It's a tomb stitched into the seams of time. I felt my throat tighten. I was the first to come back. You made it out, Sensei said quietly. No one ever has. Not one. I turned away for a second. Swallowed the weight of that truth. The vault, Minraya, the ancient voice, the shard, it all felt like a fever dream now. But my sword still pulsed with that newly fused essence. I looked at Sensei again. I only made it out because of that sigil in my bone, didn't I? He nodded. A trace. A tiny magical beacon. You didn't know it was there. I carved it into your arm bone after that first demon attack in your sleep. You what? Don't give me that look. You're alive, aren't you? I rolled my eyes, but couldn't help smiling. Typical Sensei. He wouldn't tell me what kind of rituals he had to perform to conjure a portal into that void, or what he might have traded or sacrificed to pull me out, but I didn't press. Some things are better left unspoken. Not because they don't matter, but because they do. We rested. For 2 full days, neither of us moved. Not out of laziness, but necessity. Our bodies needed the stillness, our minds, the silence, and our souls, well, they were bruised in ways that couldn't be seen. When I finally woke, the weight in my chest had lifted. The trauma didn't vanish, but it wasn't dragging me down anymore. I stepped outside the dojo, barefoot on the sacred land of Dimension 3. The air here had a hum to it. Not quite music, not quite wind, just life and awareness. The trees shimmered slightly with colors that didn't exist in the human world. The sky had multiple layers like oil and water, pastel pinks, deep purples, and a gold so rich it made your heart ache. Birds flew in slow motion. Or maybe my mind was still adjusting to this realm's rhythm. I breathed it in. A moment of peace. Short but precious. When I came back inside, Sensei was already waiting. He was kneeling by the shrine, the damp codex open before him. He didn't speak at first. Just traced one of the worn pages with his finger like he was remembering something long forgotten. Then he looked up. "It's time," he said. "The next bounty hunter has been named." He turned the book toward me. An ancient sigil burned into the page, still glowing faintly. The ink looked like it had been mixed with ashen blood. Al-Salak, Sensei said, an ancient fire demon, older than most underworld creatures. Some say it was born from the very first flame that ever existed, the one the gods tried to bury but failed. He shut the book slowly. Al-Salak doesn't just burn flesh. He burns lineage, legacy, name. It's his nature to erase everything you are until there's nothing left but smoke. A silence fell between us. "He's not just another hunter," Sensei warned. "He's punishment." I didn't say anything, but my grip tightened around my sword. Let him come. Let all of them come. According to Sensei, we were at a disadvantage. Al-Salak can't be tracked, he said. Not by us. Not with fire-based sigils. They'll flicker and die the moment we even try. Fire cancels fire. It was rare for Sensei to sound this uncertain. Not afraid, but cautious. Calculated. He'll come to us. That's the only certainty we have. So we wait. And we prepare. I nodded, feeling the weight of that truth settle in my gut. That's when something inside me stirred. A memory, sharp, cold, luminous. The crystal shard. I shot up and said, "Wait. The shard. From the vault of crystal. The one given to me by the lost soul." I almost forgot. Sensei's eyes lit up, just for a flicker. His head turned, eyes narrowing. "Let me see it." The moment I handed it to him, the room shifted. Cold swept through the air, not harsh, but ancient. Like forgotten winters. The shard pulsed with an aura that was alive, but not in the way a soul feels. This was something else. Echoes. Sensei held it to the light. The crystal refracted not just color, but fragments, brief glimpses of battle, sadness, triumph, memories. "This isn't a soul fragment," he said quietly. "It's memory, residual, raw, the consciousness of someone long gone, still replaying its last purpose." He looked at me, serious now. "This can be fused not as a soul-bound weapon, but as a mnemonic blade. The sword will remember what that warrior knew. It will act when you can't." He brought the celestial blade to the forge, set it down like an offering. "We're binding memory now, not spirit. That's trickier. Spirit fights. Memory lives quietly. You must listen." He began the ritual. Sacred sigils burned into the forge with cold blue fire. He etched glyphs into the hilt, whispering names of forgotten rituals. The air felt thick, like time was stretching. The shard hovered not by magic. It wanted to go. Sensei tapped it once, and it slid into the sword like it belonged there all along. A high-pitched hum filled the dojo. My heart raced. Then, flash. Memories erupted. I saw battles I never fought, a world I'd never stepped in, the pain of defeat, the calm before death, the clarity of choosing to give something away so someone else might win later. The blade pulsed once. "It's done," Sensei said, his voice tired but steady. "You now carry the final moments of a warrior who died alone, praying for someone to finish the war they couldn't. You're not using their soul. You're carrying their hope." I grabbed the sword. It didn't feel like a tool. It felt like a conversation. I looked up at Sensei. "We wait for Al-Salak then." He nodded. "And this time, fire won't be enough to stop you." As we sat outside the dojo beneath the violet skies of Dimension 3, the air calm and oddly electric, I turned to Sensei, my voice heavy with thought. "Shouldn't we return to Earth? We've been away too long. And if Al-Salak appears there?" Sensei didn't answer immediately. He kept watching the drifting clouds that didn't quite obey gravity. His silence said more than words for a moment. Then he exhaled. "We can't go back. Not yet." I looked at him. "Why?" Because Earth isn't safe, he said. Not from Al-Salak, not from any of them. I frowned. But Dimension 3, this place is outside the gods' influence. Isn't that why we came here in the first place? That was the case, Sensei said, voice grim. But too many things have happened since. Too many barriers pushed. Too much movement between realms. They've started to notice. He turned to me, his expression sharper now. The barrier between the realms, it's thinning. That veil, once meant to protect this place, is now fraying. Our presence here, the fights, the rituals, the blood, it's all ripples in still water. And gods notice ripples. I felt it, the weight of our journey pressing down. So, even this place isn't sacred anymore? It never was sacred, he said. Just forgotten. And now, they remember. I clenched my jaw, thinking of the cities back on Earth. The tremors, the flash floods, the sudden fires that no one could explain. All of them our fault, even if we were trying to stop worse things from happening. If Al-Salak shows up on Earth, the collateral damage would be catastrophic, Sensei finished. And not just physical. Al-Salak's presence corrupts. Minds, emotion, infrastructure, entire regions would turn to ash from within. So we wait for him here? I asked. Yes, Sensei said firmly. Dimension 3 can take the hit. Earth can't. Here, the rules are looser. The reality is tougher. Here, we can fight without the world we love burning in the process. I looked down at my sword, now embedded with memory and frost. Then we prepare. We wait. And when he shows, we burn the fire out of the fire demon, Sensei said with a faint smirk. For the first time in a while, I smirked back. 4 days slipped by in the blink of an eye. The quiet hum of Dimension 3 had this eerie way of swallowing time. No chaos, no sound of blades clashing, just drifting thoughts and old wounds whispering in silence. I sat with Sensei outside the forge, the air buzzing faintly with leftover magic from the shard-binding ritual. I broke the stillness. We're wasting time. Sensei raised an eyebrow, knowing where this was going. All these underworld bounty freaks, it's all a goddamn detour. Our real enemies are the gods, not these underlings crawling out from their cursed pits. Why don't we just go straight for the source? Why play this game? He didn't answer at first, just stared into the distance. Thoughtful, patient, annoyingly calm. Because it's not a game, he finally said. It's war, and wars aren't won with rage alone. So what? We pick them off like flies while heaven laughs at us? I snapped. 7 months, Sensei. 7 months of blood, rituals, close calls, and loss, and we're still nowhere near heaven's gates. How long do we keep playing cleanup while those bastards sit on their thrones, untouched? My knuckles turned white around the sword hilt, resting by my side. Sensei turned to me, his tone firm but not unkind. If we march toward heaven now, the bounty hunters will flank us. We'd be torn apart before we even get a glimpse of the divine walls. These demons, they're shields, living obstacles, sent to wear you down before you even take your first real step toward vengeance. So they're stalling us? I asked, jaw clenched. Yes, and if you skip them, they'll drag you down midway. Every one of them must fall before you aim your blade at a god. That's the path. I stared at the sky. It didn't move. No Sunday, no stars. Just that endless, void purple stretch. Feels like everything's just designed to keep us away from them. Every step forward, something else appears to slow us down. Another freak. Another test. Another fucking prophecy. That's how gods keep control, Sensei said. They don't kill you. They drown you in detours. I looked down at my hands. Scarred. Burned. Shaking slightly. Sensei and I fell silent after our talk. That kind of silence that doesn't calm you just makes your skin itch. The wind in Dimension 3 had changed. It wasn't the usual dry breeze that whispered through the dojo's old wood and stone. It was heavier, hotter. The next morning, we noticed the sky was no longer its usual dim lavender hue. It had turned rust red, like blood mixed with smoke. Clouds moved like slow, boiling oil. No birds, no echo of distant energy, just a suffocating heat that hadn't been there before. Then came the signs. Far to the north, where the glass mountains of Dimension 3 pierced the clouds, we saw flickers of orange. At first, we thought it was sunrise, until we realized the flames danced too violently, too unnaturally. Entire ridges were alight. Wildfires devoured stone, not trees, and stone should not burn. It started, Sensei said grimly, standing beside me as we watched molten rivers flow where there used to be solid canyon paths. the lands reacting to his presence. On the second day, a town what little society existed in this dimension was gone. Just gone. No screams, no resistance, just ash and melted bones. The kind of heat that leaves nothing but shadows burned into the walls. Buildings folded in on themselves like wax. By the third day, the skies cracked. A vertical rift opened, like a glowing wound across the heavens, exposing a dark, endless void behind it. Fire didn't pour out, not yet, but you could feel the pressure. A heartbeat, like something monstrous was inhaling deeply, preparing to exhale death across this realm. He's not here yet, Sensei whispered, watching the rift. But he's close. Al-Salak isn't subtle. He melts the world before he even steps foot on it. I didn't speak. My hands were already on the hilt of my sword, fingers brushing the ice-forged crystal now embedded within it. Flame was coming, and we were waiting. That night, the air was unbreathable. Even inside the dojo, it felt like we were inhaling cinders. Sensei had placed 3 protective sigils around the perimeter, each glowing faintly with frost blue light, barely keeping the heat from creeping in. We didn't sleep. Just past midnight, the wind stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. As if the entire dimension had paused. Then came the whisper. Not in words, but in sound, like dry leaves crackling in a furnace. It echoed around the dojo, slithering through walls, bouncing off ancient stone. Wraiths, Sensei murmured. Fireborn, sent ahead to test the ground. The sigils outside began to flicker. Then came the shrieking howl. Flames erupted through the cracks of the earth like serpents, coiling and snapping around the courtyard. From within them stepped silhouettes, thin, spindly figures made of molten ember and ash, their bodies stitched together by smoke and hate, eyes burning white-hot. No faces, no voices, just heat and destruction. They lunged. I didn't even have time to think. My sword moved on instinct, slicing through the first wraith, its body exploding into a burst of scorched glass. But it didn't end there. More poured from the flame veins, dozens of them surrounding us. Sensei spun like a whirlwind, frost trailing behind every cut. But even his strikes weren't enough to keep them all back. One grabbed my arm, its touch, searing through skin and bone, and I screamed, falling to a knee. The sword, the shard, it reacted. A pulse of light burst from the blade, freezing the creature instantly in midair, like glass submerged in liquid nitrogen. I shattered it with one upward slash, the crystal's cold rage humming in tune with my fury. But they kept coming. Every wraith we cut down, another rose. This is not a battle, Sensei roared. It's a message. And, then, just as quickly as they came, they stopped. The last remaining wraiths turned to ash, drifting upward toward the broken sky, as if pulled by invisible strings. The flames on the ground dimmed, leaving scorched scars in their place. Silence returned. But not peace. We knew what this meant. Al-Salak was near. He was letting us know that the next time, he wouldn't send messengers. He'd come himself. The following day, the sky never brightened. The sun, if it still existed in Dimension 3, was buried behind a blanket of crimson haze. The clouds churned like boiling tar, heavy, thick, unnatural. Birds stopped flying. The air was too hot to carry wings. Sensei stood outside the dojo, silent. Even he didn't offer a word of wisdom this time. From the distant peaks, mountains older than any recorded lore, smoke began to rise. Not the kind from wildfire. This was darker, denser, alive. It twisted upward in a spiral, stretching across the heavens like a celestial scar. I blinked once. When I opened my eyes, the smoke had spread across the entire horizon. Towns far beyond the mountains, ones we'd visited before, were now just shadows beneath a creeping curtain of ash. Then came the thunder. It wasn't natural thunder. It cracked like bones, snapping under celestial weight. Each strike echoed through my bones, vibrating the sigils carved into my spine. Then we saw it, the March of Flame. From the far side of the scorched plains came a procession of fire, walking upright like men but shaped like walking furnaces. Lava pouring from their joints, swords made of sunbursts. Each step they took scorched the very fabric of the dimension, reality bending under their feet. At the center of the procession, a storm was gathering. No lightning, just swirling smoke and roaring fire pulled into one singular spiral above a chasm that hadn't been there the day before. He's carving his way through reality itself, Sensei whispered. He's not walking here, he's being invited. The mountain split. A glowing glyph, massive as a city, formed across the cracked peak. Ancient runes, some even Sensei couldn't read, shimmered with demonic fire. From the heart of that burning sigil, something stepped through. No, not stepped, descended. Al-Salek, not a beast, not a demon in the usual sense. He was structure, ritual, wrath. His body, a living furnace, with ribs like obsidian pillars and veins pulsing with molten ichor. His face, a helmet of ever-burning coal, crowned by endless flame. No eyes, just a heat so intense it could peel flesh from thought. He didn't roar. He existed and the world bent to accommodate him. All of Dimension 3 responded. Trees exploded into flame from miles away. The ground under our feet began to melt. And then he looked at me, no pupils, no face, but somehow I knew he recognized me. He pointed a clawed finger that looked like a shard of the sun itself, and the ground beneath me cracked open in a ring of fire. He's chosen you, Sensei said quietly, stepping back. This isn't a hunt, it's a duel. And the sky broke open with flame. The moment Al-Salak's claw pointed at me, the ground erupted. A ring of molten flame ignited beneath my feet, circling us both in a coliseum of living fire. Dimension 3, twisted, contorted, made space for the clash. Forests burned to ash in seconds. Distant rivers hissed into steam. My grip tightened around the sword, now fused with the crystal shard from the vault. It pulsed once, as if recognizing the elemental challenge ahead. Al-Salak didn't rush. He strode forward, each step cracking the earth like breaking glass. Fire bled from his joints, licking the ground. His chest opened, not like flesh, but like a furnace door creaking wide, revealing a core of white-hot energy inside, beating like a heart. You carry ice in your veins, child, he growled, voice like magma rolling through rock. Let me see if it melts. Then he moved fast. Way too fast for something that size. I barely deflected the first strike. His fist came down like a meteor, slamming into my sword with so much force it sent me flying backward, crashing through 3 burning trees before I hit the ground, rolling hard. I could smell my own skin burning. Armor sizzled, hair scorched. I got up, shaking, breathing smoke. He was already on me. I slashed forward, the ice shard in my blade, igniting finally. It screamed awake, and my sword shimmered with chilling mist, trailing with each swing. I went low, sweeping across his legs. The blade connected. Ice bit into molten flesh. Steam exploded outward like a geyser. Al-Salak stumbled, just for a second, then laughed. That sting was from another era boy. His palm opened, and an infernal glyph shot toward me. Boom. It hit. The world split in white-hot pain. I was thrown through the burning air again, barely conscious, sword slipping from my hand. The fire clung to my body like hungry spirits. I crashed into the ground and slid to a stop, choking, heaving. He walked toward me, slowly. You are not the first to challenge me, he growled, but you will burn like the rest. And then I felt it. The shard embedded in my sword, it called to me. A whisper, a sensation. Like a frozen hand reaching into my soul, telling me not to break, not yet. I called my blade back. It flew to my hand like a comet, and the second it touched my fingers, the frost flared outward. I stood, bleeding, gritting my teeth. You want me to burn? I spat blood, smiling. Then I'll freeze you first. The ground beneath me shifted. Ice spread from my boots outward in a spiral. Snow in hell. A blizzard in the heart of fire. He charged, I charged, and the true fight began. The battle erupted like a supernova. Each swipe of Al-Salak's claws wasn't just an attack. It was a soul-scorching eruption of fire, the kind of pain that bypassed the flesh and struck straight into the core of my existence. His strikes came in a relentless rhythm, a barrage of burning fury. I dodged what I could, but the rest landed. Searing pain exploded through my body with each blow. Before I could retaliate, Sensei launched in from behind, like a shadow-turned blade. His strike landed deep into Al-Salak's spine with precision, causing the abomination to stagger, releasing a hellish roar that rippled through the battlefield. That was my cue. I shook off the impact, teeth gritted, blood dripping, and channeled every ounce of the ice, elemental power surging from the crystal shard. The sigil on my sword lit up in a cold, radiant blue. I slashed upward clean across Al-Salak's throat. The scream it let out? Bone-chilling. Like the underworld itself, wailing in agony, but it only pissed him off. With insane speed, the demon charged and rammed into me with its molten, armor-plated shoulder. I flew like dead weight, crashing into the rocks with enough force to crack the ground beneath me. My vision spun. The world blurred. While I struggled to stay conscious, Sensei drew the demon's attention, buying me time. shielding me with his own fading strength. Then I heard it. His scream. Sensei took a direct hit, a savage claw tearing through him. He collapsed, unmoving, vulnerable. My heart dropped. Al-Salak raised his arm. Fire coiled around it, glowing with molten rage. A stream of flame was seconds from incinerating Sensei. I forced my body into motion, sprinted toward him, and raised my sword barely in time to summon an ice shield. The inferno slammed against it, roaring like a dragon starved for blood. The shield held, but it took everything I had. I could feel the elemental energy drain like sand through open fingers. One more shield, and I'd have nothing left to strike back. No strength, no sword, no vengeance. This fight was turning into a furnace of frustration. My patience shattered. My blood boiled hotter than the fire that threatened to swallow us. I felt the rage tingle through my veins, my soul scratching against the inside of my skin, begging to be unleashed. It was time. I stood tall, my sword pulsing with neon vapor, now laced with an intense blue glow ice elemental fully activated. I charged, every ounce of fury behind my swing. But then, I saw it. The sigil on Al-Salak's forehead, it lit up, pulsing with dark flame. Sensei screamed, "Stop! Don't attack, something's wrong." I roared back, "Screw that! I'm ending this scorched bastard now." I swung, a blinding impact. The world twisted, my attack didn't land, it rebounded. The full force of my own strike, amplified and reversed, slammed into me like a meteor. I flew through the air, limbs flailing, crashing back into the rocks like a shattered puppet. Blood spilled from my mouth, my back cracked, and pain painted every inch of me. I lay there barely breathing, crushed, humiliated, broken. Al-Salak laughed a deep, guttural, soul-twisting laugh. Sensei's voice cut through the chaos. "Get up! Fight back!" But I couldn't. My soul screamed for vengeance, but my body had nothing left. The fire demon towered over me, charging its final blow, a molten fist of death descending toward my broken form, and then it froze. Mid-strike, inches from my broken body. Time didn't stop, but something interfered. The fire demon's claw trembled, its molten veins flickering like dying embers. A deep, ancient hum vibrated through the battlefield. The sigil on the demon's forehead, the very thing that deflected my attack, began to flicker wildly. The glow destabilized. The aura around Al-Salak warped, no longer pulsing in rhythm, but crackling like a corrupted circuit. That's when I heard it. The voice. "The lost soul from the vault. He reversed your blow using a sigil of reflection, but the shard in your sword remembers. The attack was copied, not erased." My eyes widened. "Now, give it back to him." That's when I felt the crystal shard inside my blade pulse. Once. Twice. Then violently. It was screaming to be used. My body was broken. Muscles torn. Bones cracked. But my will? Untouched. Alive. Boiling. With a final breath, I screamed from the ground, summoning every last drop of ice, vapor, and memory from the shard. The sword lit up. Not just with ice, but with every emotion from the vault. Rage, sorrow, vengeance, and that sacred whisper of a soul that never got to finish their fight. The blade moved on its own. It rose, hovering above me like an avenging ghost, and then it shot forward, faster than light, faster than thought, straight into the sigil on Al-Salak's head. Boom. The sigil shattered. And with it, the fire demon's defenses crumbled. Al-Salak stumbled backward, clutching its head, molten blood pouring from the wound. Flames erupted randomly from its body, uncontrolled now, panic, fire, wild and desperate. I stood up, broken, barely breathing, but I held out my hand, and the sword flew back to me. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," I whispered. Then I ran. One final charge. No fancy technique, no magic tricks, just pure, raw, unfiltered vengeance. I drove the sword straight through its chest, ice meeting fire in a cataclysm of smoke and screeching fury. Al-Salak howled, its body convulsing, igniting from the inside out. The infernal fire turned on itself. The demon thrashed, staggering backward. Then collapse, a beast of flame, reduced to flickering ashes. Silence. Then Sensei coughed. "Told you not to attack, dumbass." I laughed, then passed out. The next time I woke up, I was back at the dojo. My whole body ached like I'd been steamrolled by a star, but at least I was alive. First thing I did was ask Sensei how long I'd been out. 2 days, he said calmly, like it was nothing. Weirdly enough, I felt hungry, like properly hungry. Not just energy depleted from battle, but human-level stomach growling hungry. Do you feel that? I asked, and Sensei nodded. The dimensional barrier in this realm has thinned too much. Natural laws are starting to warp. Sensations like hunger, fatigue, they're bleeding in from Earth. We both agreed it was time. Time to go back to Earth. Eat some real food. Rest. Lay low. Regroup before facing the final demon. The last bounty hunter sent from the underworld by the divine bastard himself. Sensei had already read up on our next enemy, but he said he'd brief me when the time was right. For now, he said, let's just get back. We need to breathe air that isn't soaked in hellfire. I didn't argue. We opened the portal and stepped through. No matter how many times I travel through the cracks of reality, I never get used to the nauseating pull or the vertigo that kicks your balance sideways. Like your soul takes a hit before your body even lands. Some things never change. As the veil of the portal snapped shut behind us, the familiar gravity of Earth hit different, denser, heavier, but oddly comforting. The sky here wasn't the ominous purple hue of Dimension 3, but a clear cerulean blue with soft clouds lazily drifting by. Birds chirped in the distance. The air carried the scent of soil, trees, and something nostalgic home. It was quiet, peaceful. Almost too peaceful considering the war we were dragging behind us from realm to realm. I looked at my place in the distance, unchanged. Yeah, we were back on Earth. After everything that went down at the local motel and my place, it felt like the right time to bring my pet dog Ezio home. My cousin had been looking after him for a while, keeping him safe at his place, away from the chaos. When we met, I shook his hand and thanked him sincerely for watching over Ezio. I asked if he could still drop by and feed him while I was away again. He nodded, no questions asked. Solid guy. I never told him what I've been dealing with. No one would understand, and honestly, it's better that way. Safer for them. This burden, it's mine to carry. Seeing Ezio sprint around the compound with that wild tail-wagging joy hit me hard. He definitely missed me and this place. Felt good to see a familiar kind of love. My cousin left after a short while, and not long after, Sensei stepped out of the shower, hair damp, wearing a rare smile as he watched Ezio. He got dressed while I went in to clean up too. Once I fed Ezio and made sure he was settled, I had a craving. Something greasy, messy, and real, so I suggested we hit the burger joint for dinner. It was a little further out, so I figured I'd take my car. Thing hadn't been started in what felt like ages, and of course, the battery was dead. Good thing I had an emergency starter tucked away. One spark, and the engine coughed back to life like a beast waking from a nap. Miraculously, there was still some gas left in the tank. Sensei climbed into the passenger seat like he belonged there, silent and curious. We rolled out to the nearest gas station, filled up, and then made our way to the burger spot. No divine omens, no sigil storms, no demon howls, just the smell of grilled beef, toasted buns, and that unmistakable Texas-style steak burger calling our names. For a brief moment, we weren't warriors or fugitives from gods. We were just two tired men grabbing dinner after a long damn day. We devoured that burger like men who had earned every bite through blood, ash, and fire. The patty, seared to absolute perfection, was made from premium Angus beef. Thick and juicy, the kind that oozes flavor and melts into your soul. Slathered in that Texas-style brown sugar glaze, it had this subtle, smoky sweetness that wrapped around the meat like a warm thread. The sesame toasted bun had just a whisper of charcoal powder, giving it that extra edge, that battlefield grit. Cracked pepper, layered like armor across the patty. Iceberg lettuce, crisp, refreshing, broke through the heaviness like a cold breeze in hell. Caramelized onions brought in a soft sweetness, tangled between the bite. A dash of honey mustard. Not too much, just enough to remind your taste buds you're alive. This is the kind of meal you eat before ripping the gods out of their thrones, I said, wiping the sauce from my fingers with pride. Sensei took another bite, nodded with reverence. Divinely good. I raised a brow. Not divine, Sensei, just good. Divine's done nothing but screw us over so far. He chuckled, chewing. Fair enough. Then... lip-smackingly good. We both laughed. Real laughter, the kind you forget you have in you when you spent months fighting shadows. Then came the strawberry milkshake smoothie, thick, chilled, and creamy, gliding down our scorched throats like a healing spell. After a fiery, Soul-shattering battle. This was heaven in a glass. The cracked voice in my throat felt reborn. We didn't stop there. A side of beer-battered, deep-fried onion rings hit the table. Golden, crisp, and dusted with truffle and lemon salt, each bite crackled like breaking old bones and tasted like victory dipped in grease. Then the bill hit. It was a heavy number, but honestly, worth every damn cent. Grief lit the spark. Vengeance feeds the fire. Author's note, writing Neon Nights was not just an act of creation, but an act of exorcism. Grief can be a crushing weight, and when my mother passed away, I was left in the silent void of abandonment, not by her, but by the divine forces I had once trusted. I prayed, I begged, I was ignored. What followed was not healing, but a fire one that burned with rage, sorrow, and an unyielding desire for justice. Neon Nights is my way of channeling that fury into something bigger, something that could speak for everyone who has felt betrayed by the gods, by fate, or by life itself. If you've ever stood in the dark, your heart torn by loss, and felt the weight of a world that refuses to listen, this story is for you. May it remind you that vengeance, though dark, is sometimes the only answer when the heavens fail to answer our prayers. The end of Volume 1. More violence and satisfaction coming to you in Volume 2, as we hunt and slay the gods.
Carry out the revenge on the gods, the ones that took it all away.
Neon Nights, I'm the God Slayer. Arwin's name echo like a neon prayer. When the lights go out, I'll still be there. Bad juju, you don't wanna play. Step into the neon, I'll take your soul away.
Devoid of all that makes one.
You don't know what you've done.
In a dark, abandoned alley, thick with fog and rain, weak neon signs flicker. Suddenly, a vibrant sign appears, glowing with perfect clarity. It displays Neon Night Records by Arwin in electric pink, deep purple, and icy blue. As it illuminates the alley, the ground rumbles violently. Cracks split the pavement. A massive sinkhole erupts, tearing apart the alley. Buildings crumble, neon lights shatter, and debris collapses into the void. But amidst the chaos, the Neon Night Records by Arwin sign stands untouched, glowing powerfully, the only symbol surviving the destruction.
Neon Night Records by Arwin.